going to give you a little recap of NFL Begins! NFL Week 8, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to start out with Thursday Night Football as the 1-6 Washington Redskins traveled to Minnesota to take on the 5-2 Vikings. It was a slow game, a Thursday night football game, just like we've seen a lot lately. Slow game. Case Keenum got knocked out of this game.
Yep.
And, he played a good bit of it, but got knocked out of the game, and in comes Dwayne Haskins. Keenum went during the game 12 for 16, 130 yards, no TDs, no picks. Haskins jumps in, goes 3 for 5, 33 yards, no TDs, and a pick. Not looking good for Dwayne Haskins at the times he's seen the field as a rookie. Now, he is a rookie, but he's had a lot of picks. It's not good. That is not good. I will say Peterson goes 14 for 76, a 5.4 yard average, no touchdowns. I believe he broke a rushing record in that game, got a standing ovation from his old team in the Minnesota Vikings.
I think he passed, was it like 15,000 yards or
he
something?
Passed Bettis.
Like the fifth. No, that was the week before.
Oh,
this one, he hit a threshold, which only 5 backs, which you'll see this now. He's breaking records. Very classy on the Minnesota fans.
Yes.
And the team itself, because they really made a spotlight in this game, and it was pretty cool. Because I gotta admit, I ain't the biggest Adrian Peterson fan. Just for some personal things, but at the same time,
because he was a Viking.
No, because he whipped his son. But that's a different story.
We get listen. Now, I don't want to dive too far into this, but kids today have it too soft. Getting a little lashing on the behind is not a bad thing. I used to get punched in the mouth.
All right, but here's the problem is when you whip your kid and you probably only spend a total of like 6 hours with the kid through the first 3-4 years of his life. That's my problem.
That's okay. That's
yep. All right. So anyway, I won't get into a personal thing, but I will say, you know what? Again, I don't watch football to learn about these guys' personal lives. I am a believer in if you do things that would get me fired in the NFL, you should be just as fired, if not fired quicker, because of the amount of money and just the overall
your
show.
job or your life isn't as highly scrutinized as these guys.
Correct. So what I guess I'll say is I watch it for the field, and you can't deny what the guy has done. I give him credit for the last 2 years. I mean, last year he had a very, very good year at his age. It's really him and Frank Gore are throwbacks, guys that their careers have continued to last over this time, and they both seen injuries, significant injuries at times, and recovered from them. I mean, I still won't forget the Adrian Peterson. What did it take him, like 6 months to come back from knee surgery, and then ran for almost 2,000 yards or a little over 2,000?
ACL at that.
Yeah, so
nothing weak. It was a tough injury.
Yep. So anyway, this game, interestingly, this is the thing I found is a lot this year, and maybe this is just the new NFL. The obvious game plans tend to not happen in games a lot. The game plan did happen, which was everybody looking at this Washington team and saying that the Vikings, with their strong running game, were just going to run the ball down Washington's throat. They did a pretty good job of it. They stayed to it. I mean, Kirk Cousins, again, you want to knock him, but he didn't throw any touchdown passes. They were without Thielen, but Cousins went 23 of 26 for 285, so certainly moved the ball through the air. But Dalvin Cook was the star of the show in this game.
Again.
Yeah, 23 carries, 98 yards, and a score, and then threw in 5 catches for 73 yards. The guy is just a friggin' beast. They spelled him well with Madison. Madison 13 for 61, so he was not running too shabby either.
Nope.
This was just all around. They dominated this game. The Redskins, Case Keenum had a pedestrian day, which is about what you're getting out of him. Adrian Peterson carried most of the weight, but you can't run when you're down as much as you'd like. So, but he was 14 for 76, so still ran very, very well. and then Haskins came in, and Haskins ensued.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, this is what kind of boggles me a little bit, and you touched on it. Their big wide receiver, Adam Thielen, was out. They also have a really good wide receiver in Stephon Diggs, who went 7 for $143, so he torched him, didn't score. But my thing is this, Thielen's out, so there are some, you look down the roster, Laquan Treadwell, Kyle Rudolph, Irv Smith, Olabisi Johnson. Nobody great. Like, why are you not giving your full attention to Stephon Diggs on the backside? Now, I understand you got to worry about Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
Very much so. But still, man, Norman, if he's as good, and he's on the, I heard he might be on the trading block, but if he's got anything left, you should definitely be strapping him to Stephon Diggs and give him a little help. It's the only guy you really have to worry about in the passing game in terms of wide receivers, and he still just torched him.
Yeah, again, I watched this. I gotta say, this might be kind of that year that Cousins had in Washington before he got the franchise tag, where he really blew it up offensively. He has started to step in there. He threw some good passes. This wasn't like he was just throwing to Stephon Diggs the whole game like wide open. He threw some tough balls, got him in there. He seems to be finding a rhythm that I'm sure Vikings fans have been waiting forever for. I agree with you. You want to shut him down, but the truth of the matter is, you can say it's not a wide receiver, but Cook still went 5 for 73.
I get that, but
he's running you ragged.
You got a whole front that should be able to slow that down in the secondary. Come on. I just don't understand.
But this is a poor team. Washington's
it is a poor team. They're not very good. I wonder what their thoughts are in the draft. They just took Haskins. They haven't really. I can't see them going for another quarterback because they haven't really seen what this kid can do, and they've put him in a very bad situation, especially when he's gotten in. But, what are they going to do? They need help all over the board. They probably go running back, I would think. Because Geis is supposed to come back, but that whole experiment is, I don't know.
Well, I'll say this. This has kind of always been my belief, and it's just it shows. Like I can point to several examples of this. They're going to have a new head coach, obviously, coming in. It's going to determine what kind of head coach, and obviously the precedent now has been set with what Arizona did, that it's not out of the realm of possibility to go quarterback again, depending upon the guy that you bring in. But here's the deal. When you're a new coach, this is how it plays out almost all the time. You've got 1 year with incumbent quarterback and usually there is a quarterback problem when you're making a coaching change. It's very rare that you're like, hey, I got a superstar quarterback and I got a new coach, but it does happen, a la Green Bay. But when you do that, you have 1 year to make that decision if that's your guy. After that, if you keep, for instance, in this example, Haskins into year 2 of the next coaching regime, you own him. You're married to him. And that's kind of what I'll use the Bears as an example. Nagy's into right now. He said Trubisky could be the guy, and now he's in year 2 of his coaching, and he's stuck with him, and now there's obviously all this uproar about whether he really is the guy. I don't know that Nagy survives this scenario without making Trubisky work unless they do something midseason, because the Bears are built for right now. So I think with Washington, that's going to be the interesting thing. If you bring in some young, innovative guy and Haskins doesn't fit that system, you might see a Rosen, Kyler Murray situation, or you got 1 year to prove it with this quarterback, and then which case then you're making a change. Now, if you're making a change midstream, whoever that guy picks up, now you're married to that guy for your career at Washington. You will not see a guy get to a third quarterback in the league. So it is going to be interesting. What do you do? I'm not really sure. I think they need a lot more. They need a lot of defensive help. They need serious defensive help, and I don't know that they can ignore it and spend that first round. Washington, I got to tell you, I'd be looking at a guy like Chase Young all day long and at least try to build a strong defense, and maybe with the youth of the quarterback and, a young running back in Geis, who, while that experiment started off very ugly for them, there's still some opportunity. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting. But Minnesota looks the real deal. Minnesota's going to be very tough coming down the stretch. And, they get a Chiefs team this week. likely still without Mahomes, so that's another good opportunity for them to get a W.
Sure. All right, let's move on to the next game. We're going to move into the 1 o'clock games on Sunday. We had the Arizona Cardinals head down to the Bayou, take on the New Orleans Saints. Surprisingly, Drew Brees did come back in this game. We talked a lot about it last week. There was chatter that he was ready to get back on the horse and get back out there. The question was that a smart thing with them having a bye coming up this week? They could have held him out one more week. Teddy B's been doing a great job. Their team has been winning, and it would give him an extra 2 weeks if he had held out last week and this week with the bye to get even healthier.
Yep.
They didn't. They put him in there. Didn't matter. He had a great game.
This is exactly why when I talk about guys, my two favorites for Coach of the Year, Sean Payton and Frank Reich. This is the thing. This move, based off all you just said, about the bye and more time to rest, and you made a big thing about old guys, they don't recover as quickly and all this thing, and then they come back and they're maybe not necessarily totally right. If this move blows up on New Orleans and they lose this game, it's a really bad look on Sean Payton. Yet Drew Brees is just frigging amazing. I mean, we're seeing some amazing things in football. And to think that Drew Brees should be the most elite quarterback of our generation the way he plays, and yet there is still a Tom Brady out there. And almost in a way, Drew Brees gets completely overshadowed by that, because to come back and go 34 for 43, 373 and 3 scores after sitting out, and there's a guy, 40? And he's doing that, and it's just amazing. I'm all over. I've been on the Saints team since the beginning.
Yeah,
I was a little nervous with Bridgewater at first, but then look what they did. And now with him, what I love is Michael Thomas went off but got in the end zone. That's huge. Taysom Hill, he was making big plays in that game and scored a touchdown too as well. And I said this before, there is something about Latavius Murray this year. He is ultra fresh. He ran and caught passes like a beast. I mean, think about this. You're sitting Kamara, who is probably one of the top 3 or 4 running backs in the league in his ability to handle heavy workload in the offense. He's not a ground and pound, but he's a heavy, heavy pass catcher. And Latavius Murray, who's not known to do that mixture, has been killing it the last few weeks. Killing it.
Yeah, you look good. They just dismantled, in my mind, the Cardinals. You're talking about young Kyler Murray, 19 of 33, 220 yards, no TDs, no picks. He also ran the ball 2 times for only 13 yards. They had no rushing. Chase Edmonds goes out banged up, 7 carries, 8 yards. Zach Zenner, who they brought in, had a carry, no yards. Christian Kirk, their wide receiver, came back into the fold. He had 1 carry for 19 yards. It was like an end around. Receiving-wise, their leading receiver in terms of yards was their tight end, Charles Clay, with 3 for 88. Christian Kirk went 8. He had the most receptions for 79. Our friend Larry Fitzhume, 2 for 8 yards. I mean, they didn't do anything, and we had talked about the Saints defense a lot in the past too. That is a good defense, man.
Yep.
Good defense.
Agree.
And they shut them down. And then, like you said, you went over some of the numbers on the other side. Latavius Murray, phenomenal day in Alvin Kamara's stead. 21 for $102 in the TD. He also caught the ball 9 times for 55 yards in the TD. So, and I think Kamara is great. But again, I'm going to say it again. Latavius Murray is taking on that Mark Ingram role. And you're not going to get rid of young Kamara. He's still on rookie deal. But, it's just it's something to be said for Sean Payton, the offense, the way this team goes about their business.
Well, I think what makes this Saints team, let's put a couple things in perspective. Arizona was generally thought to be the dumpster fire of the NFL coming into the year, at least one of 2 or 3 teams that were going to be really horrible. Arizona's won 3 in a row, I believe they've won 3 in a row
prior to this game.
So Arizona was coming in with a groove. Now I will say this: the injury to Chase Edmonds was brutal for them. They never were able to, and that's a big reason why I was almost. He got hurt, and then what was it? A day later, they traded for like Kenyon Drake because they're hurting in the running back position. But this was a team on an upswing, and the thing that scares you is it should scare the NFC is this is a Saints team that the Drew Brees passing game has always been there. It's always been there. And that's what they've lived and died with. But now this team has two things that you say they fill in the Mark Ingram role. I would venture to tell you that Latavius Murray is performing better in this role than Mark Ingram ever did. And Mark Ingram was not bad, but his ability to run with power and wear teams down and then throw on top of that this aggressive run-stopping defense, and then you add Drew Brees. We're talking all this stuff about the Patriots. I got to be honest with you, at this point in the season, I don't know how far behind the Saints really are from that. They are just, and they're only going to get better. I mean, they're going to lose a game somewhere in here like all teams generally do. But this Saints team is just I think they haven't even explored how bad they're going to explode. I think that Breeze injury was almost a benefit for them. I think it just shined more light on the other parts of the team, and they played the focus. I mean, think about it. This is a team that went into Dallas and beat Dallas 12-10.
Yeah.
So this bodes well for the Saints. Cardinals, you ran into a buzzsaw. I would have preferred Drew Brees sat out. If I was the Cardinals, it might have been a closer game, but Bridgewater went undefeated. So this is just a good football team.
For sure. Let's move on to the next game. What was the final score of that one?
31-9 was the Saints over the Cardinals.
So the Saints moved to 7-1, and the Cardinals moved to 3-4-1. Next game. My New York Giants traveling to Detroit to take on the Lions. Why don't you start us out?
All right. One of the things, and we did this more from a fantasy aspect, we felt like this was going to be a pretty high-scoring game, which it delivered. I don't remember what actually, I can tell you right now. The over-under on this was 49 points, which was on the higher end last week, and they didn't disappoint. 57 points scored in this. Lions win the game 31-26. I saw some really, really good things. I want to start with the Giants. Out of the Giants, Daniel Jones, and I'm a little bit surprised by this. I thought they would last week. They were going to protect him a little bit more, which they kind of did, and had a tough game against Arizona. But they let this kid get out and sling it in this game. He threw 41 times, was 28 of 41, threw for 4 touchdowns. Slayton got in on it. Barkley got in on it. Barkley had a good game. Not as much on the running end because he only had 64 yards on 19 attempts. But that threat was there. But did it in the passing game. 8 for 79 with a score as well. The Giants' offense looked pretty complete. Their defense struggled a little bit against the Lions. But all in all, like, they're getting their weapons back. They got their tight end involved. They got Barkley involved. They got Tate involved. Slayton obviously scoring 2 touchdowns. This was a pretty balanced offense and bodes very well for the Giants as they move forward. I'm sure you got some things you may want to add to the Giants if you'd like. You saw.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the defense needs help. The defense is our biggest problem. I like Coach Shermer, even though this record is not very good for the guy, but he is still young, and I just said it. We can't play the coaching carousel forever, and who are you going to get? What I am concerned about is Betcher, our D coordinator. I don't know that he's the right guy for the job, quite frankly. I don't know what we're going to do with this defense. We'll talk a little bit about the trades, but we did just make a trade with the Jets, and here's a little note. Never have the Giants and the Jets made a trade.
Interesting.
Isn't that interesting? First time ever. Leonard Williams, love him. Big D tackle, great stuff. And we'll talk a little more about that later, but we'll see where he fits into the grand scheme of things. I do like where we're going on offense. I think again, I've been saying all year, we need a few more pieces, especially, could shore up a little more on the line. especially on the outside. Need a big play wide receiver. I'd like to see more out of Evan Ingram. I think he's a phenomenal talent. I just don't know if he's a tight end for the Giants. I just don't know. I don't know anymore.
Well, if he's going to be that pass catching and less of a blocking tight end, he's got to stay a lot more healthy than he has been. That's definitely got to be a concern. On the flip side, here's what I like about the Lions. They took the hit on Kerryon Johnson. He went on IR, and he's going to be out through pretty much the remainder of the year, with the possibility, I think, to come back in the very last week or two if he's healthy enough. There was no running game for them here. They did not run the ball well. They tried. They had Johnson.
Everybody thought Ty Johnson was going to be the starter. He was not.
He was not. Trey Carson actually ended up getting the lion's share, pun intended, of the work with 12 carries and only had 34 yards on the ground. We said this in our preview was the Lions now are going to be forced to be the Lions of old, and I still think they're built for that. They have a very strong wide receiver core. It was Marvin Hall. I keep getting Marvin Hall and Marvin Jones confused. Who's the one that had 3 touchdowns last week? I think it was Marvin Hall had the 3 touchdowns last week. Not last week, but the week before. Yeah. He caught a 49-yard bomb for a touchdown. And, but they also threw a lot to Amendola. He went 8 for 95. If he can stay healthy, he's still very dangerous receiver there. But then Golladay just went off 6 of 123. Stafford was very strong, 25 of 32 for 342. He did have a pick, but he threw 3 touchdowns in this game. It was a game where this is how the Lions, in my mind, in a very, very tough division, are going to have to win the rest of the year. I think the Giants offense is very formidable. I think it's certainly significantly better than everybody thought, especially now with all the guys back, and they had to battle it out. And the Lions are going to have to learn how to be they're just going to have to go back to aerial attack as much as that's supposedly not what Patricia wants to do. You can't abandon the run, which I like. They still ran the ball 24, 25 times in this game, but really it was the passing game that moved them up and down the field, and they're going to have to be a big play team. That's just who they're going to have to be. And they did it, and it won. It won for them against again, they had to go toe-to-toe with an offense that was humming. I mean, the Giants were humming.
The problem, again, it's our defense. We've got no edge rush, and our secondary is susceptible. And when you don't have an edge rush and you're putting those guys out there on an island and they have to cover for long periods of time, they're going to get picked apart. And I don't know where we go from here. We'll go ahead and why don't we just talk about the trades while we're on it.
Go ahead.
And just a quick throwback, because we did just talk about Arizona. Yes, they did pick up Kenyon Drake from the Dolphins. That's not a surprise that Drake got dealt, because we were talking about that all year.
Yeah, Miami was a seller, and Arizona was desperate for a running back.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, he's the type of running back they can use there. Obviously, this tells me more, I guess, about David Johnson's health than Chase Edmonds.
Yeah, I agree.
But I guess that
I think it's a little longer term. Yeah,
are an issue. They got a conditional 6th-round pick for Drake. For my Giants, like I said, we made that trade for Leonard Williams for a 3rd pick in next year's 2020 draft and a conditional 5th round in 2021. I love Leonard Williams. I do. But again, we talked about where I feel the Giants are strong and deep, and that's at the D tackle spot. And Leonard Williams is a D tackle. Now, I know you had mentioned that, the based on his size, and if he's slimmed up a bit, he might be able to be punched out there to an edge rusher. And I question, because we've talked about this, a 4-3 defense under Betcher, which, if I'm not mistaken, historically at when he was in Arizona, they ran a lot of 3-4. Now, I could be wrong, but I feel like that was the case. But we have been running a 4-3, and I just wonder what we're going to do here. Because, like I said, we're deep at D tackle, so if we're picking up another D tackle when we need an edge rusher, that leads me to believe that we're going to try to move into a 3-4 a little more firmly. with guys like Dexter Lawrence, our first round number 17 pick from Clemson, doing a great job this year at D tackle, sticking him at the nose, having Leonard out on one side, Dalvin Tomlinson we got from Alabama 3 years back on the other side. You got BJ Hill, also a D tackle from NC State we got a couple years back. That's really good to spell those guys. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, I'm curious to see what happens, because if we do that, like I said, and then we go, 4 deep on the linebacking core, and we'll get into some of these people on the block. But one of the guys on the block, which we talked about, Vic Beasley, hasn't really done what he's needed to do with the draft pick he was at in the first round for the Falcons. He's coming off of his rookie deal. Second year in the league, he did lead the league in getting sacks. He just hasn't gotten better with his hands, and he's a smaller guy and a speed guy, and maybe outside linebacker is a better position than DN for him. He can cover receivers, tight ends, slot guys. He can, he's fast, so he can move in space. I don't know. I wouldn't. If we go that to the 3-4 route, I could see us making a play for him, because you might be able to get him on the cheap. But I'm not sure exactly what's in Gettleman's head. Leonard Williams is on the last year of his rookie deal, so we will have to pay him next year. I can't imagine we picked him up for the back half of the season thinking that we're going to make a run, even though it is quite possible to still win the division if we were to make a phenomenal run. But I don't know how you're going to do that. You're certainly not going to do that just with Leonard Williams. No. And so in the back of his mind, Gettleman has to know we're going to be paying this guy to keep him around. Otherwise, that's a waste of a third-round pick next year and a conditional fifth the next year. So, I also on the block that's come out for the Giants, Alec Ogletree at linebacker, Janoris Jenkins at cornerback, Nate Solder, our left tackle, who we just got, beginning of last year from the Patriots. We've had some good work on our line, and he hasn't been unbelievable, but he's done well.
Yep.
But we need to make sure that we continue to shore up that line. I think with a guy like Daniel Jones at the helm, rather than Eli, and being able to maneuver a little bit, I think that might be where their thinking is with Solder, is like, you don't need somebody so stout. I mean, you want somebody stout, but like we could find somebody else and groom them, and the mobility of Jones can give us a little more time with that offensive line to do so, rather than have a statue and Eli back there just taking licks. I don't know, man. I'm curious. I've said it before. Beginning of the season, didn't like the OBJ trade and all that, even though at this point in time, it looks like we're the winners in the trades we made with Cleveland. But, I've questioned Gettleman and his decisions. And I question this, but to the decisions he's made to this point that I did question prior, I have to give him some credit, because there've been all right moves. So, but I doesn't mean I'm not questioning what I'm seeing here. I just wish I knew what was inside the mind of the Gettle man.
I think some of this is by design. On the surface, Leonard Williams, I mean, it makes no sense giving up 2 draft picks for a guy that's a half-season rental for a team that's, at this point, definitely not in the playoff picture. They would need to go on a serious run to do that.
Right.
Now, I'll say this. I remember when he came out of college, there was talk about whether they'd thin him out a little bit and move him to a traditional 4-3 D end, or whether he'd play inside. He is right now, size-wise, he is a traditional defensive end in a 3-4 scheme. He's 6'5", 302.
Okay.
But this is not a sloppy 302. It's a guy, if you want an oversized DN and go to a 4-3, I think it's very viable to get him in that 285, 290 range. And the Giants have had guys like that in the past, some very big defensive ends, and still be able to rush the passer.
Strahan, man.
Yeah, Tuck. They were all big boys.
They
weren't little. So, you could do that with this guy. I think they're committing to it. My feeling right now is, a big name that's been on the block for a while because he's sitting out is Trent Williams out of Washington. Apparently Washington is going to, all word is that they're going to hold on to him till no end. Now that might just be a ploy to up the payback on it.
All season they've been saying no, it's not going to happen. Now they're saying, okay, now we'll trade him for the right deal. Everything I'm hearing indicates he's going to Cleveland.
Well, I think Cleveland wants him really bad, but what's interesting is Nate Solder appears to be the option 1B for Cleveland if they can't get this Trent Williams thing. They are desperate for a left tackle. I think they're going to make a move. They're either going to get one of those two guys. Now to the Giants, they're not in the perfect salary cap situation. So, again, Solder, if you'll remember, was the highest paid tackle in free agency the year that he came over, which was what? This is his third year, I believe, right? Second year. Okay. So, there is some savings there. I don't think they're going to say that they're going to go to a 3-4 necessarily. I don't think any of the moves they're making right now are off of this year. I think this Leonard Williams move is for the future. I can see where he would fit in a couple of different ways. So I don't, I know the initial reaction is, what the hell are you doing? That's like a strength of our defense, and you're adding another strength to our defense. But I don't think this guy's that dumb. You know what I mean?
I don't either. That's why I want to know what's inside of his what they're thinking, because I think Leonard Williams is phenomenal. I love the guy.
Yeah.
It's a really good pickup if we can make it work with what we've got defensively.
Well, I think right now the key is, I think that quiet is part of the plan, and it's in the sense that they're not, a lot of these teams like Washington, they're looking to dump salaries so they can have tons of cap space. The Giants, if they're going to make this growth on the fly, are going to need to make some moves that are going to look like subtraction, even in the midst of signing a guy like Leonard Williams, which is clearly an addition for the future. I think that's kind of the plan with what they're doing that. And again, that's why you see names like Janoris Jenkins. Like, he's not going to be there when this team is totally turned around regardless. So can you get something out of him and cut his salary, cut the salary out while you're at it? I don't think Ogletree seems to fit what they're doing. I think that's why you're hearing his name out there, and he's got some value still left. So that's kind of the balance. I could see him making moves, guys. To me, like Vic Beasley, I don't know where he's at in his contract. Is he in his? Is he in 1 year away from a contract, or?
I think this is his last year of his rookie deal, if I'm not
okay.
mistaken.
So and right now that guy's not earning a ton, not going to earn a ton of money. The way the Falcons are playing. But yet he's still going to test the market. And as we've said, there's 4 positions you pay for, and he happens to play one of those positions. So, he's
probably get him for a deal.
He's going to get a decent sized contract regardless, just because pass rushers are hard to find. And he did have a 16.5 sack season in 2016. So, that's kind of the thing I see. And you're watching teams, like the Kenyon Drake is a real obvious. That's an injury recovery situation. Leonard Williams is not so obvious. And I kind of like that. I like that they're going to keep that kind of close to the vest and see how it plays out. I think the Giants are on the swing, but they're going to have to be very, very creative in the way that they move. They don't have the cap flexibility of some of these weaker teams. They can totally do this. They've got ways to make this happen, but they're going to have to do it systematically. I think that's kind of why you're seeing, because I had a big question. It honestly, on the surface, looked really stupid. Like, go and get rid of Odell Beckham and then sign a guy like Golden Tate to a contract that was not cheap for what I thought Golden Tate was worth. It didn't really make sense. And granted, they didn't exactly win that Golden Tate thing, but they didn't know at the point that he was going to get suspended. But it's work. Like, these things are working.
And they did save some money.
Yeah.
I mean, Odell Beckham was highly paid. And when you're talking about the 3 guys we mentioned, Janoris Jenkins, long in the tooth. Alec Ogletree, not there yet, but definitely not in his prime. Same with Solder. But those 3 guys also commandeer pretty high contracts, and comparatively to their age, if we can somehow loosen the reins a little bit, even if we have to take a little hit financially, but not that entire hit to get rid of them and maybe pick get some picks for it or something of that nature, then that could free up some room. That's totally where that part I do see Gettleman's head at. Those 3 guys, if we cut them loose and don't have to eat a ton of the financial risk on them and can dump it on someone else, it will open up some more space for us to do what we need to do.
Well, I think where you hit the nail on the head was about 5-6 weeks ago when you said Giants fans and the Giants just fan base, even the city, the whole thing, the ownership wasn't going to tolerate a going in the tank. And I think with the start of Eli, which I think was the right move, starting Eli in the beginning of the season, was what was their attempt at trying to do that, knowing that they had some contracts they wanted to shed and needed a lot of help. What I think changed that was, and I actually disagreed with the idea of putting Daniel Jones in as early as they did because I was, worried that he wouldn't be ready. But I think the emergence of him as a very viable quarterback right now changed their mindset from a complete blow up to, okay, can we transition through all this? Because right now we got Saquon on the cheap, we got Daniel Jones on the cheap, and they're both going to come due one right after the other. So can we do this rebuild on the fly? And to this point, it's worked, and it's going to be interesting. But I think you're going to see the Giants are going to be active in my mind, but it's going to be addition and subtraction. It's going to kind of go both ways.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a heck of a job. This guy either is going to look like a fool in the end, or he's going to look like a genius. And right now, so far, the signs have been good. I can't knock his moves.
It's what I'm saying. It's like, I can't knock him, man, because though I question the moves that have been made, most of those in the offseason prior to the year with Cleveland, if we look at on the surface at this point in time, we look better in that deal. Yep. We're looking better in that deal. And I'm the one that screamed from the rooftops, don't get rid of Odell, and I still don't know that was the right thing. But we did it. And if we're going to look at this point in time, it looks like he knows something we don't. I guess that's why he gets paid the big bucks. So, final score of the game, unfortunately, the Giants lose. They dropped to 2-6. It was 31-26 Lions. Lions go to 3-1. Still very much in their division if they do what they need to do. So, moving on to the next game, we move up to upstate New York, where the Philadelphia Eagles took on the Buffalo Bills. You know how much we love the Bills' defense. Think they're really good. Unfortunately, didn't work out for them in this game. They took a bit of a hit. In this game. Nothing spectacular out of Carson Wentz. Goes 17-24, 172 yards, 1 TD, no picks, but what Philadelphia did was run the ball very well, with Jordan Howard running 23 times for 96 yards and a TD. Miles Sanders, 3 for 74 and a TD. Miles Sanders also caught the ball 3 times for 44 yards. This is a team, I think, that if they can get going with the run, then they're going to be better off the rest of the year. I think that you'll see outcomes like this if the run is going like it was in this game.
Yeah, I kind of looking back at some of these games, there's this belief we get Carson Wentz back, obviously, the Eagles, and he was expensive back up, but traded Foles. Foles wasn't traded. He was signed somewhere else, but they didn't re-sign him. Here's the thing I'm seeing. When this team wins or when this team loses, Carson Wentz's stat line is pretty stagnant. Mm-hmm. It's generally about 25 passes a game. He's about, between 60 and 70%, which isn't terrible, and maybe a score or 2 scores and a pick. He's not blowing it up in some of these games where they're scoring. When the Eagles win games, they are pounding the ball, and Jordan Howard has kind of come to the forefront with this team in those games. Their best offensive games have been when he has played really well. I think at this point now, I think we might be seeing Carson Wentz becoming more of the game manager type quarterback than the big play quarterback. And so can the Eagles transition? Again, they still have problems in their secondary. The Bills were not able to take advantage of it. Josh Allen did not have a very good day in the air. Did have a couple of scores,
34,
but inaccurate in this
169 yards, 2 TDs, no picks. Ran the ball 8 times for 45 yards, which we know him to do. Frank Gore, 9 for 34. Singletary, he looked okay, but he only had 3 carries for 19 yards. He also caught the ball 4 times for 30. John Brown, 5 for 54. Cole Beasley, 33 grabs for 41 yards and a TD. Singletary, again, 4 receptions for 30 yards and a TD. It was just, I watched a lot of this game, and they were, it was much closer until really the end of the third. And but the Bills were hanging in there, and it was I felt like they're at home. It was just a matter of time before Josh got going, but he never did. And they tried to, obviously Philadelphia did it with their running game, so they controlled the clock, they controlled the ball, and they took the Bills out of their game a little bit and forced them to have to chuck the ball around. And I think Josh Allen's great. It actually surprised me because the Phillies secondary is not that great, but he wasn't able to get it done, man. And the 5-1 Bills now go to 5-2. They're in the same division as New England.
Yep.
So as good as they may or may not be, New England's winning that friggin' division. And so the best that Buffalo can hope for, as most years in the AFC East, is maybe get a wild card bid. They can't lose a game like this to the 3-4 Eagles, who are now 4-4, and they did. And it was on their turf, and it was quite frankly 31-13 to the Eagles. Loss to the Eagles is kind of embarrassing. Eagles have squandered the year for the most part.
Yep.
And Buffalo's look strong, especially defensively. And I'll be honest with you, again, I watched a lot of this game. The defense was struggling, man. It looked like they were doing their thing, but they were just getting gashed. They were getting gashed.
Yep.
And, as it went into the second half and they continued to get gashed and not be able to stop people and were on the field a lot more than they needed to be, being Buffalo's defense, it wore them down, and they continued to gash them, just control this game. And, Buffalo loses. They can't, they have to, I'm not saying they're going to be able to keep up and surpass New England, but they need to keep up, because there are some teams out there outside of the division leaders that they're going to be battling a wild card for.
Yeah, and a good help for them next week is they get Washington. So that's a game where you want they need to get right definitively in this game. You don't want to see again. Maybe I had the wrong team when I said San Francisco, because there's going to be a team that is kind of a darling in that week 5 to 6 range that at the end of the year you're going to go, what happened to them? And you just don't want a team like the Bills could fall into that category, obviously, because they are definitely playing well, that if they don't consistently play well, and Josh Allen, this is going to be something that's going to carry with him for a while. He is known for the big arm. He's known to be able to run the ball, but he's also been known to have games where he's incredibly inaccurate. And this is one of those games where he did not throw the ball well, didn't see the field well against a secondary that should be able to be exploited. I thought this was kind of a ready-made opportunity for him. And again, Philadelphia is, I think Philadelphia could be in the conversation near the end of the year, but they're so wildly inconsistent in the way that they play. But I think when you're going to go talk about playing a Saints team, a Green Bay team, even a Vikings team, you're going to have hell to pay, and you're likely going to be doing it on the road because you're going to be a wild card at best. So, again, wasn't the best game in the world, but what is interesting to me is Philadelphia just re-upped Carson Wentz for $128 to $144 million, depending on his bonuses, and he's really.
He may not be the guy.
Well, at the very least, he's evolving more towards the game manager side than to be the franchise quarterback. And when you got that much money invested there, that's going to make it really hard on the rest of and a team that needs to go spend some money to get a secondary like yesterday.
Yeah.
So
look, I will say this, man. Fletcher Cox is an incredible athlete, man. That guy, he is the leader of that defense, and he just makes plays. And if it weren't for him, that secondary, as bad as we've seen it, would be 10 times worse, because he gets in there and he causes havoc in the backfield and causes the quarterback to have to pull the trigger much quicker.
Yep.
So, all right, let's move on to the next game. The hometown boys, the Atlanta Falcons, welcome the Seattle Seahawks. Falcons go into this game 1-6. Seahawks go into this game 5-2. One of the higher over-unders of the day. We expected some explosive stuff to happen. Prior to the game, Matt Ryan was ruled out, so in comes Matt Schaub. Well,
And we're
actually,
going to go on to the next game because it's the Falcon. No, just
No,
kidding.
I mean, I got to admit, I mean, Schaub went 39 of 52, 460 yards, 1 TD. He did have a pick. Not bad in Ryan's stead. He made Julio relevant, even though he didn't see the end zone, 10 for 152.
He made everybody relevant. Let's be honest. He did. I mean, listen, one of the things that I said, and you and I talked about after watching the Falcons play Tennessee live, was I started watching Matt Ryan look at his feet. He started watching the pressure coming at him. His eyes were down, and it was really killing the Falcons. You know, when you're a backup quarterback, you know you're going to be under siege. I mean, that is just the position. When Chase Daniel went in for the Bears, they came after him. When Matt Moore came in for the Chiefs, they came after him. It's just the nature of the position. And if you want to stay in this league, you got to be willing to look up and put the ball downfield. And remember, Schaub was a starter for a while and had some good years. You know, not a spectacular quarterback, but definitely a serviceable backup. And he was looking downfield. And I look at it and I see Julio Jones with 10 catches for 152. Calvin Ridley, who's been all but irrelevant the entire season, 4 for 70. Austin Hooper got his 6 for 65. Devontae Freeman got into the passing game, 8 for 63, which is something that you have not seen a lot out of him. Their running game was still pretty poor overall. Ito Smith being out really hurts him because Devontae Freeman has definitely lost his ability in the backfield to run the ball. But again, I watched a team that with the weapons they did have, he just made sure to get him the ball. And he was under some pressure in this game, certainly from the Seahawks defense. I was a little surprised the Seahawks didn't go a little bit more for the jugular in this game. It seemed like they were a little slow at points. It's nice to see DK Metcalf, even though he didn't get a lot of catches and a lot of yards, caught 2 touchdown passes. They were wide open.
Yeah.
I mean, so there was some
Lockett
good
went
plays.
6 for 100. Russell Wilson only threw the ball 20 times.
Yeah.
They ran it much more. He went 14 to 20, $182, 2 TDs, no picks.
Yep.
Chris Carson, 20 for 90, 1 TD. Rashad Penny, who is on the trade block from what I hear. Seattle's looking to shop him. He went 8 for 55. I mean, they maybe it was just one of those situations, like you like to say, traveling across the country. This time it was the West Coast team coming all the way east.
Which is generally harder because it's basically like they're playing at like what, 10 in the morning?
Yeah.
So, but I will say this. Yeah. This is the thing that I didn't like out of the Seahawks. They had a 24-0 lead at halftime.
Yeah.
Is just that second half finish. Now they again tried to pound the ball, but what they did, which a lot of teams do this in football, college and pro do it. You get that big lead, you try to go to the ground and pound, but what happens is, remember what we were talking about with LSU and Alabama in that game of who can run the ball and keep the quarterback off the field, is you get out of rhythm. And that's what I saw in the Seahawks in the second half was they started to get out of rhythm as an offense. And then all of a sudden, the Falcons are in, hey, let's just toss it around mode. And, as bad as I think this Falcons team is, the one thing they do have is a passing attack, even with Schaub. And, man, 460. So I think that's what you saw in this game. It was definitely not as close as the score would indicate, but I don't like the foot off the gas that I saw from Seattle, and maybe some of that is the traveling across the country, but I also think it was game plan. They could have stomped the Falcons if they would have kept the rhythm going. Yeah.
So final score, Seattle 27, Atlanta 20. Falcons go to 1-7. Seahawks go to 6-2. On the horizon, Seattle will go home and get the Bucs this week. As for the Falcons, they will travel to New Orleans to take on the Saints in 2 weeks. They have a bye this week. Okay. A couple other things to note. We just mentioned Vic Beasley potentially on the trade block. I also heard rumors that Austin Hooper could potentially be on the trade block, which surprises me because he's kind of been the breakout star for the Falcons this year. And we talked a lot about it. Getting the most they can for their valued players. And Austin Hooper is one of them. But the biggest one is Julio Jones, and there is obviously no chatter about that. So they're obviously not looking to do anything there. Also talked about Rashad Penny, the backup running back for Seattle, potentially on the block. We'll see what happens there. But it does surprise me a little bit with the state that the Falcons are in, that they're not even considering shopping Julio Jones, or we haven't heard anything about it.
No, and they actually a couple weeks ago came out and said they're looking to get a long-term extension done for Hooper. Here's the real thing about it is they've got now, fortunately for them, 2 offensive trade pieces that would get some value. And this team, again, they're going nowhere with their current offensive state. Their defense is almost non-existent at this point. So I think the biggest failure.
They should make a trade with the team they just played.
They should
get Rashad Penny from them and send, because they need a running back in Atlanta, and send Austin Hooper out there because they need a tight end in Seattle.
Yeah, and they should definitely get a draft pick with Austin Hooper, certainly on a value sense.
Sure.
But this is the thing. If the Falcons don't make at least 2 trades, and again, there's your 2 offensive players. You mentioned already Vic Beasley on defense. I think Grady Jarrett, maybe even
his rookie deal will be up too.
Who's their middle linebacker? Deion Jones. I mean, you got to put those guys' names out there and see what you can get, because there's a lot of work to do. And and the truth be told, I mean, this is a year, I think, with the quarterbacks coming out, this is a team that has got to be looking quarterback, because I just think Matt Ryan's done. I think he's just done. And so we'll see. We'll see what the Falcons do. If they stand still at trade deadline, it could spell a long-term doom for the Falcons, much longer than their slide is projecting right now.
Well, Dan Quinn still has a job, and I anticipate he'll have it throughout the rest of the year. Just knowing Arthur Blank, he'll probably let him ride out the season, and I'll be surprised if he's still the head coach next year. Really surprised, but that's just another chink in the armor of things they have to worry about, is not just the players but their coaching staff. So
yeah, and the problem is the Falcons do not have their next head coach on staff. I mean, you're talking about a retread, and Cutter on offense is probably, if Quinn was fired, who would take over, just because he has the head coaching experience. I just think nobody's on their team that has the potential to even be considered for the next head coach. If they do, they're nuts. So with that being said, what's the point in firing him right now?
Maybe they'll take Lincoln Riley and they'll draft Jalen Hurts or something like that. Who knows?
Could. But the point is, if you're going to stand fast with all your the Falcons are in a have to make some sort of move right now. It's not a very strong fan base to begin with. If you create a level of disinterest like this and allow this farce to play out the rest of the year without doing anything aggressive, they're in big trouble. It's just because it's going to hurt them everywhere.
Yep. Moving on to the next game, the New York Jets travel down to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. The Jags go into this game 3-4. Jets go into this game 1-5. Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts last week, so would he pick himself back up off the mat? Not quite.
Here's the good news. Let me just tell everybody this. I want to say that there is a guarantee that in the touchdown to interceptions with Sam Darnold, there'll be a big, big number. The problem is we just don't know which column that number is going to be in.
Yeah.
Sometimes he even splits it up.
Yeah, Darnold has an efficient game going 21-30, but he only had 218 yards, 2 TDs, 3 picks. Can't have that. Le'Veon Bell, that's me. Le'Veon Bell did a whole lot of nothing. 9 carries for 23 yards. Didn't see the end zone.
Similar through the air.
Yep, similar through the air. Their leading receiver in terms of yards was Ryan Griffin, 4 for 66. He is a tight end. He had 2 touchdowns. Baby Thomas got involved with the most receptions, 5 of those for 63, no touchdowns. Robbie Anderson, 4 for 43, no touchdowns. It just is, and we just mentioned Leonard Williams is gone now, sent next door to the Giants. It's just, they not good. The Jaguars win this game, move to 4-4. Jets lose, go to 1-6. It was a 29-15 victory by Jacksonville on their side of the ball. It wasn't a phenomenal day for Minshew, but it wasn't bad.
I mean, it was pretty solid. He had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, 279, 3 touchdowns, 22 of 34. Fournette went 19 for 76. Didn't see the end zone through the air. Went 7 for 60 on the ground. He didn't see the end zone. Went 7 for 60 through the air. Didn't see the end zone. Charker, the DJ Chark went 6 for 79, touchdown. Chris Conley had a good game on 4 receptions, had 103 yards in a TD. Yeah, I mean they're a team that they can definitely, I think, as they move forward with the Gardner Minshew, and now that Jalen's gone, they're starting. We said it last week. They're starting to kind of show and find an identity of who they are, and they're not a bad team. I don't know that they're necessarily going to be able to surprise people and win that division, but they're not out of it. At 4-4, they're not out of it.
I think, I look at what Minshew's doing, and I look at his receiving core, and DJ Chark's been a pleasant surprise. But, man, what this team would have if they had, like, Allen Robinson for this kid Minshew, a guy that catches everything. I mean, they had the guy. They need that security blanket type of receiver. Understand they've taken a beating in the tight end role, too. I mean, they lost O'Shaughnessy, and then they lost Swaim. So,
yep.
And even those guys, those aren't big names.
No,
but he's losing weapons, and yet I see this kid continue to progress. Like, if they come back and bring Foles back, I think they're nuts. I would ride this kid with his contract.
Sure.
I don't know what
That's why they say that's another guy that's on that there's been rumors that Foles will be on the trade block.
He brings a big contract. That's the challenge.
And rightfully so. Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge. Rightfully so. But to bring him back and start him over Minshew at this point in time would be a mistake in my mind.
Yes.
Another guy on this, and this is awfully timely because I just got an update on Bleacher Report. The Jets are open to trading Le'Veon Bell.
Okay, let's go back to the Jets trade too before we get into that because it'll kind of roll into that being good. Okay. Understand right now, obviously the Jets just traded probably their best defensive player in Leonard Williams. There is talk, again, this was a team that was expected to be competitive this year. I don't know to what level, but definitely not thinking that they were going to be a cellar dweller. And the Le'Veon Bell, as it worked out, obviously Sam Darnold getting sick with the kissy disease, and then coming back and
now he's got a thumb problem, but they say he's going to play through it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team at the receiver position. They're looking to trade. Robbie Anderson's name is being floated around quite a bit around the league. And then you look at that at the receiver core. Besides that, I mean, you've got an aging Demaryius Thomas and Jamison Crowder, who is not a spring chicken either, is your receiving core. And you've got a failed signing in Le'Veon Bell at this point. And maybe there is something to be said for that sitting out that whole season, but of course you knew that was going to come if he didn't perform well. But it really hasn't gotten off the ground. I can't totally fault him. I mean, having quarterbacks that are not able to move the ball downfield.
Or that having no quarterback for, thus far more than
I mean, really, he's only had one game this year where the passing game has been good, and that was Darnold's first game back.
Yeah.
And other than that, it's been
and
terrible.
Even in that game, he had a good game, but it wasn't like Le'Veon Bell type stats.
Yeah. So right now you got a Jets team again, and in a way kind of similar to the Giants in the fact that they have some hefty contracts, and now the Le'Veon Bell contract, they're looking to move it because they're looking that bad. They're looking that bad.
Yep.
And obviously moving Leonard Williams and not wanting to pay him. This is a team that is, I think, decided to go hardcore in the other direction the way this is going out. So maybe some big moves. I don't know how much value Le'Veon Bell is going to bring with that big contract and that poor performance.
They're gonna
they might not get much.
They may have to eat some of the contract in moving him. So we'll see what happens there. Next game, the winless Cincinnati Bengals at 0-7 traveled out to Los Angeles to take on the Rams, who were 4-3, and really they don't look great either, especially Mr. Goff. Andy Dalton goes 32 of 52 in this game, 329 yards and 1 TD. Joe Mixon on the ground, 17 for 66 yards, no TD. Did catch a pass. He went 4 for 11 and scored. He's been an enormous disappointment. I think that's a big problem with this team. Part of it is their offensive line is not very good, but Joe Mixon isn't getting it done at all. At all. And that shows. I mean, Dalton had to throw.
That's probably one of
50
his best games,
Yeah,
actually.
it is his best game this year. I mean, Dalton had to throw 52 passes in this game. Give him credit for having to do that just about every week thus far. It's all been on him, but he's not very good either. And, they lose this game 24-10, move to 0-8. Rams give themselves a boost to 5-3, still in the hunt. But that's a very tough division right now with the Niners getting another win and are undefeated. You got the Seahawks chomping at the bit right behind them, and then here come the Rams. So Cincinnati, it is an absolute mess. AJ Green's still out, so this talk at the beginning of the year, he's only going to be out 3 to 4 weeks, is now going on. We're going into week 9. Are they on a bye this coming week? Let's see. Yeah, they are. They're on a bye this coming week, so he's not going to get back till week 10 if he comes back. They talked earlier that he wasn't on the trading block when the rumors came out. And, I haven't heard anything since because Cincinnati, the head coach, squashed it. We talked about that. That's not his decision, but I still really haven't heard a lot. I mean, what are they? There are a few teams, just like we talked about with the Falcons, a little bit with the Jets. There's some teams in some deep trouble.
Yeah, you know what might be going on, and this is something that it could be very real. A little bit of a lot of speculation on my part, but if he's not totally healthy, which they're not showing him to be, like they obviously have not been able to showcase him for a game or two, the problem could be why Cincinnati won't move him is the offers. They might just be getting a roll of nickels for him, and that could be part of the problem is they, if he comes back, and is able to play, if you think about the end of the season, can they, because I think he's still under contract, I think through into next year.
Yeah.
Can they trade him in the offseason where they can at least showcase him? Because you would think that you would want to be doing that. I mean, they're not playing for anything. They're playing for a high draft pick at this point. And I think really, I'll be honest, as much as Zach Taylor, I always want to call him Zach Thomas, Zach Taylor wants to have an offensive passing game. I don't think he wants to be doing it with Andy Dalton, and he's been forced to with the terrible play of their offensive line, and Mixon it's just killed him.
Yeah.
Just killed him.
Bad.
And so I think they would want to get rid of him. My guess is, because you think about it, if I'm another team looking to take AJ Green, I'm going, how healthy is he? And he can get a physical and all that. If he's not game ready right now, could you trade for him and then only get 5-6 games out of him?
That's right, because
that's
the past, he's not, a young buck either. In the past, if you include this season, the past 3 seasons at least, he has been hampered with injury and hasn't played a full season. Yeah. So you're exactly right. How much is this guy worth to me, considering I might just get, so many games out of him? So break it down on a per game basis. Is the value worth it at that point?
Yeah, and because here's the thing is whoever's going to trade for him this year wants productivity this year. Like that's what they want. They want it for this year. And so I think there could be something to this injury. Like you said, what did you say? It was originally like 3-4 weeks?
So it could be like 3-4 weeks.
And here we are, they're going to get in a bye week in week 9. We're talking about week 10, and at best is going to be stepping on the field. So that could be part of the holdup with this, because I just don't see where AJ Green fits in this team long term with all the problems they got.
Yep. Now on the Rams side, Goff goes 17 of 31, 372 yards, 2 TDs, no picks. Surprisingly, and I guess it's not super surprising because they drafted this kid for a reason, but he finally they gave him some work. Darrell Henderson, number 27, the running back, had led the team in carries. Malcolm Brown still out, hurt. He had 11 for 49. Gurley had 10 carries for 44 yards, but he did see the end zone. Cooper Kupp. Wow.
For the ultimate protection, put on a cup.
7 receptions, 220 yards, 31.4 yards average per
How does he only score 1 touchdown with 220 yards?
Josh Reynolds snaked one from him. He went 3 for 73. Unfortunately, Brandon Cooks didn't get a catch. Robert Woods was 2 for 36. Gerald Everett 2 for 15. So, it's just so many people. Kupp's been the leader in the receiving core, but you expect it to be spread around a little more.
He's the, you know what it is with him. I more I watch his game, he's the best hands receiver they have, most reliable with hands. But he is the most versatile between Robert Woods and Brandon Cooks. He is the most versatile route runner. As I said in the last time we talked about this, what's impressive to me is that guy will go over and catch those tough middle, possession receiver type catches. He will also at times stretch the field. He will go and run those tough out patterns and do sideline job. Like, he has the most diverse route running tree of any receiver out there. And then you add on that he's got like mitts of glue. He truly is awesome, and it's fun to watch. You could see more and more why Goff is going to him. And if you look, you take him out of this game for Goff, and Goff doesn't really have that great of a game.
No. I mean, look.
And you can't take away those stats, but I'm just saying that's how valuable he is.
Sure. And, here's another thing I thought was good for the Rams. Their defense seemed to get right. I mean, this is a defense that, for the most part, is the same defense that was in the Super Bowl. Now they've added Jalen Ramsey. He had 6 tackles in the game. It looks like they had like 4-5 sacks.
Yeah, well, they had important too. They had 3 from the defensive line.
Right.
They run a 3-4, so you got Fowler, who's definitely a pass rusher. Aaron Donald, who's been having it a little bit tough, but he got 3 TFLs and a sack.
And Brockers did all right. Yeah.
So they're getting at it.
Defense started kind of ratcheted up what you expect out of the Rams D, because you really haven't seen it much this year. We'll just see if it can continue on a path. I feel like it's not the success of the offense that's leading to the good defensive play. I think it's the other way around. I think the defense getting out there having a good day leads to the success for the offense, especially for Jared Goff to have at least a decent day.
Yeah. They're not right yet though, because this is the Bengals. This wasn't a get-right game like I'd expect.
The final score, again, 24-10 LA. They go to 5-3. The Bengals are 0-8, man. Bengals have the Ravens. They get a bye this coming week, and then they'll have the Ravens at home the following week, whereas the Rams will get a bye this week as well, and then they will travel to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. So we'll see what happens. A lot of byes. What do we got? We might have 6 buys. We'll have to check.
It's probably 4, I would imagine.
We'll have to check that in the preview. So that's the final there. I'm still a little weary on Goff, but it was, I love seeing what Cooper Kupp's doing. And selfishly, I have him on one of my fantasy teams, and he just crushed it. Moving on to the next game, the Denver Broncos. This was something. A lot of hubbub after the game. They traveled to Indy to take on the Colts. And it was a closer game than I had expected. I think the Broncos are not very good, and after the previous week's performance against Kansas City, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
With Mahomes going down,
every reason to win that game, and they got obliterated.
So they go into this week, and I expect them to just crap the bed like they did the week before, but they actually hung in the game a little bit.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, really, when I watched some segments of this game, I think the thing I saw is it was kind of one of those games where Indianapolis, there was nothing like spectacular, but nothing terribly poor about their game. They did give up some sacks, the offensive line. Brissett was not phenomenal by any stretch of the imagination, but wasn't awful either. It just seemed like when they needed that timely play, that timely throw, timely run, they struggled to get it. Like they were on the cusp of doing some things and just couldn't get it done. I thought Denver played a pretty strong defensive game. Like I said, they were able to get after the quarterback. Von Miller and Derek Wolfe both had a day. Von Miller had 3 tackle for losses and 1.5 sacks. And Derek Wolfe had 1 tackle for loss, but 2 sacks. So they were really getting it done on the front, which is kind of what you would want to see out of Denver, because that's where the strength of their defense is going to be. And then having that one, corner in Chris Harris that can go and get at it. They also had a couple of turnovers that they were able to force, and one actually being recovered by Denver. So all in all, Flacco was unspectacular, but not horrid, and the running game was so-so. So this was kind of just a back and forth, a little bit of an old school type game, and just the big play was not there, especially for the Colts that we're used to seeing. In the receiving game, the longest pass they had was to T.Y. Hilton for 35 yards. So you see something a little bit bigger and a little bit more diverse. And then the Broncos just are struggling offensively. And now with Flacco out, they're going to really struggle offensively. I'm assuming, and I have not heard word yet of anything other than this, that Drew Lock, I think, would be their next in line to play quarterback. He had a rough preseason. Turnovers. So if that's the route they end up going, or I don't know if they have another backup. I'm trying to look that up right now. But if that's the case, then there could be some trouble ahead for the Broncos, being able to compete and not have, tough fields and all that stuff. So it's, it's going to get ugly in Bronco land, I think, pretty quickly.
Yeah. This whole thing with Flacco is hilarious. They say that it's a neck, but, it could be just hearsay, that he's out because of the neck. But, he was fussing a good deal about, I give him credit, man. He saw that, like, they weren't doing much, and he fussed about it. He's like, what are we doing? We're not even competing. We're not even trying to win. Talk about these teams, like, tanking for a draft pick, which is ridiculous to me. But, he's not of that mindset, and, but still. They lose the game 15-13. The Colts go to 5-2. They go to 2-6. So they're struggling right now.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta believe it's a blow it up time. I gotta be honest with you. I think even Von Miller needs to be on the table with this team, as good as he is. Because if you really think about it, they don't have the answer at quarterback right now. Drew Lock is not 1 year away, especially after what we saw in preseason, even if he is your future. And again, what was he, like a third or fourth rounder?
Yeah, well, he's not even starting this week.
Who's going to start? I was trying to figure that out.
It is, give me a minute.
So anyway, while you're looking that up, but, they've got that. They've already made a move on defense. They got Bradley Chubb down. They're going to, Chris
Brandon
Harris.
Allen. Will be the starter this week. So they're not even looking to put their draft pick in.
All right. So maybe a little less of a turnover opportunity, but still not a good look at quarterback. Their running game is, at best, it's solid with that two-headed monster they got. They're not explosive in games. They have better games than others. But it's a two-headed monster. I just think, defensively, if they make some of those moves, and if Derek Wolfe goes too, you're talking about a team
they
that's
could get rid of Garrett Bowles because they're not happy
they
with
have
him.
to. I think he's a sack. He's a holding penalty or a sack waiting to happen.
Yep. So it's troublesome. Whereas the Colts, they're still rocking at the top of their division. It doesn't matter how you win, it just matters that you do it. So.
Yeah, and this was a flat game, and they still won it.
They
so
still won the game.
That's
their
a good sign.
Defense is good. They have a good defense, and they were able to hold them in the game. Nothing spectacular from Brissett. Nothing spectacular on the ground. Mack went 19 of 76 for a touchdown. But they're finding ways to win, and. At this point in the season, that's a great thing. Just find a way to win, and then hopefully you can regroup and turn it on in the postseason even more.
Yeah, and I've said really good things about Frank Reich, and I liked Jacoby Brissett. Here's what I like the most about him: when they lose, and they've lost twice this year. I know in the first game, like Brissett has not lit the world on fire. Like he's not having every week having a 4-touchdown performance, though he has had one.
Yeah.
But in his games where he doesn't win or doesn't play that level, I've never seen him do like a Sam Darnold, like 4 interceptions.
Right.
Like he just doesn't do. I don't know if he's ever thrown more than 1 interception in a game to this point.
Doing a good job of securing the ball.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, when you say you've got a defense and you've got what's usually either a decent to can be very good running game, that's a recipe to win. And it's a recipe to win in the playoffs, especially. So, that's the kind of thing I'm really impressed by. And I'll say, I'm really battling between Sean Payton and Frank Reich for Coach of the Year. Those two guys to me are so head and shoulders what they're doing right now above everybody else, as well as all the other teams are playing. Those guys have had to deal with more adversity and done more amazing things with that. I mean, think about it. Between those two teams, you're talking about 3 losses, and these are both teams that lost quarterbacks for the year on one team and an extended period of time on the other team, and are 3 losses between the two of them. Crazy.
Yep. So, we'll see where it goes from there. I think that, you're absolutely right. This Colts team, coaching so important, doing so well under Frank Reich, and we'll see where it goes. They get to go to Pittsburgh, take on the Steelers this weekend, who got a win last night, but it wasn't without them struggling early on against the not very good Miami team.
Yep.
And the Broncos are going home, and they'll get the Browns. So we'll see what happens there, because that's another team that you're just like,
there might be 45 interceptions in this game.
Your head. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next game. The Chargers head to Soldier Field to take on your Chicago's Bears. The Chargers come in at 2-5. The Bears come in at 3-3.
Yep.
And pedestrian day once again for Phillip Rivers in my mind. 19-29, 201 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. Melvin Gordon, 8 for 31 in a TD, nothing spectacular. Eckler didn't do anything, 3 for 3. Receiving wise, Keenan Allen went 7 for 53, no TDs. Mike Williams, 3 for 69, no TDs. Eckler did go 2 for 19 and scored. He still has a lot of value there. There is conversation that Melvin Gordon might be on the trade block, which is totally to be expected in my mind.
Well, if you were a team, what was the highest you'd be willing to trade for Melvin Gordon?
Not much.
I'm thinking a couple of deflated footballs.
No, I mean, you might be, depending on how needy you are, you might be able to get a 3rd, 4th rounder.
I don't know if I'd pay that for that guy.
You may. I mean, he's still young and he's still got some left in the tank, I think. But, at the end of the day, it was, the Chargers win this game 17-16. How? I don't know, because I don't think they're that good. I think the Bears got a pretty decent defense. They held them down, but I guess the end-all be-all is 23 for 35, 253 yards, no TDs, and a pick in Mitch Trubisky. Not going to get it done in the NFL, sir. No. However, and we did call this in our fantasy and in our preview, and it was only a given after Nagy, came out and said, I know we need to run the ball more. Well, they did. 27 carries for David Montgomery, 135 yards and a TD. Loved seeing it. He went 4 for 12 in the passing game. But he did get the run game going, which is a good thing, I think, as moving forward. Hopefully you'll stick to that. I just don't know if you need to be that heavy. But quite frankly, Mitch Trubisky is a thorn in your side. So either he gets right or you're going to continue down this path and really have to lean on the run.
Mitch Trubisky probably had about 4 throws in this game that were critical throws that he blew, including one for an interception. 2 of the worst ones were overthrows on sure scores. But here was the real problem with this game. The Bears had to kick 5 field goals in the red zone, and every one of those red zone possessions involved a first down inside the 10-yard line. And they couldn't score in the end zone. One bad throw by Trubisky, multiple stuffed runs. They had one point had, I think, eight different, I think it was 8 plays in from the 4-yard line and in that they couldn't score. They couldn't get the ball in the end zone because of a couple penalties by the Chargers. And in the end, the kicker missed an easy field goal right off the bat early in the game. Then they settled for a couple of field goals. But then the kicker had a chance to win the game. I think it was like a 40-something yard kick and missed it wide left.
Got Piñero'd.
Yeah. So, I mean, then, and again.
But can you blame, can you get mad at him?
Yes.
Why?
because an NFL kicker should be able to go better than 3 for 5 from inside of 45 yards.
I know that, but I mean, your offense wasn't, had opportunities too.
No, listen. Here's what I'll tell you.
This is a guy you signed off the street.
The Trubisky. No, we traded for him. We traded him
Pinheiro?
from the Raiders.
Oh,
but here's the thing: is Trubisky did not have a great game, but the thing that gets lost in some of this. But if you're in the Chicago media, you're hearing it. Nagy's play calling in this game was once again horrific because Trubisky hit some good throws in this game too, which he had not done in previous games. I mean, I got to be honest with you. If I see one more sweep or jet sweep, if I see double reverses, this is the NFL. Defenses don't fall for that crap. It can't be a regular part of your offense, and it was. It was awful. So I guess my point is, Trubisky gets no pass. I mean, he missed plays where we could have won this game and he should have been able to put the ball in the end zone. But I will tell you, Nagy goes right with him. I'm not giving the coach a pass. You could say coach doesn't throw a pass. I'm sorry. I cannot watch gimmick NFL football. Gimmick is good when you can run.
You seemed pretty stoked in about Matt Nagy.
His play calling last year was completely different
what's
than this year.
going on? They're falling off the
bandwagon. Because here's the whole thing is with this offense now, with the health and everything that they've got, was built around the idea that we could do the things like the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm not saying to their level, but the idea of continuing to push the ball down the field. Our answer and I'll give you a perfect example. The Bears are on the 4-yard line, okay? The first handoff up the middle goes to who? The smallest running back in the NFL in Tariq Cohen. What the hell is that? Like, you've got David Montgomery at 210 pounds, and you're running a guy that's 5'6", like 187 pounds, up the middle in a game where David Montgomery, you just said it, was having a good game. And it's almost that Pete Carroll, like trying to be smarter than everybody else type of offense. The difference is Pete Carroll only does it on the goal line in the Super Bowl, but Nagy just does it the whole game. And it's awful. It is awful to watch. We've got zero existence from our tight end, Burton, who we paid all that money for.
Actually, there was a Trey Burton sighting in this game. He caught a pass.
I know.
16 yards. But is that the first
pass
he's caught all year?
4 years and like $28 million later, this is what we get. What was nice to see is Anthony Miller got involved. Allen Robinson continues to be exceptional while looking just mediocre in statistics. Again, I refuse to allow Trubisky to go all by himself. That's garbage. Is Trubisky the guy? It doesn't appear so. But at the same time, put the guy in a position to succeed. Pound the rock. Like they said, and here is a perfect example. So they ran the ball well, and someone asked him, why don't you run more out of the I formation? Run a little bit more traditional so you can create some more mismatches and actually get more bulk yardage. And he said, they didn't bring me here to run the I formation. My problem with that is we brought you here to win. And if the I formation is what wins, then you get in the damn I formation and you run it. And that is a stubborn coach who has not earned his bones in the NFL. Now, I'm sorry. He may be a little bit like, maybe a poor version of Sean McVay in the sense that McVay's all of a sudden starting to get caught up with by defenses and they're not quite as explosive with all these players. Maybe Nagy's just not as smart as McVay, and he's going down faster. I don't know. The Bears far outplayed the Chargers in this game, and yet lost at home by a point. Like they did, and that tells you how bad of a team this is. That they lose at home when they outplayed them because they are inept in everything they do in the passing game. And in the play calling.
I still think they have a great defense. The problem is the offense. It's not doing them any favors.
But not everybody's going to suck like the Chargers and allow you to stay in the game.
I know. So final score 17-16. Chargers get off the schneid. They go to 3-5.
The Bears stay on the schneid.
Bears are at 3-4. The Chargers will welcome the Packers to L.A. this week, so we'll see if they can keep it up.
I got a side bet for you.
And the Bears, they will go to Philly to take on the Eagles.
All right, side bet for you. if you don't watch your TV and just turn up the volume really loud, does it sound like they're actually playing in LA or does it sound like they're playing in Green Bay when the Chargers play?
Look like, you mean?
No, yeah, like if you just just listen to the crowd cheer.
Oh, yeah.
As it goes. Any team that goes and plays in LA with any sort of following, always. I mean, it was a debacle when Pittsburgh went out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you have it. And then, like I said, you guys go to Philly to take on the Eagles. You need to get a win for me here to help knock those Eagles off their perch.
You're asking for the wrong thing, pal.
Hell, there's been a lot crazier stuff that's happened. So, all right, let's move on to the next one. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, coming off a bye, traveled to Vegas to take on the Tennessee Titans under Ryan Tannehill, who had a modest day, 21 for 33. 193 yards, 3 touchdowns. Derrick Henry, 16 carries for 75 yards. In this game, Delaney Walker was out, so Jonnu Smith comes in at tight end, has a really good day. 6 receptions, 78 yards and a TD. There was a Tajay Sharp sighting. He had a TD. I didn't know that guy was still playing.
How about Ferkser?
Ferkser. He's the other tight end. Went 3 for 43. For the Buccaneers, it was
a Jameis day. This is who Jameis is.
Yeah.
If anybody wants a perfect game to say who Jameis is, this is Jameis right here.
Yep, 21 for 43, 301 yards, 2 TDs, 2 picks.
Yep.
He rushed the ball 8 times for 53 yards.
That is not Jameis, by the way.
He was the highest rushing guy on the team, which is not good. Ronald Jones, 11 for 35. Peyton Barber, 10 for 20. Neither saw the end zone. It was a Mike Evans week. We've seen mostly Chris Godwin weeks. But when, and when that happens, Evans hasn't done much. This week it was the other way around. Mike Evans goes, just bonkers. 11 receptions, 198 yards, 2 TDs. But it was, it's what we've seen a lot out of Tampa Bay this year. They're playing from behind, and they're just trying to catch up. They came close. They actually take the lead in this game going into the fourth quarter, and then that didn't last long. I mean, the Titans, at the end of the day, the final score, 27-23 Tennessee. Tennessee moves to 4-4. The Bucs go to 2-5. I don't think the Titans are superiorly formidable, but I think they have something going with Tannehill.
I haven't seen that he got injured in this game. I don't see anything on the wire, but what's interesting is they're working out quarterbacks right now in Tennessee, which something going on with Mariota, or I don't know what's going on, but they're working out quarterbacks. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm not sure what that means.
I don't know. I haven't heard anything, but I think
Josh Johnson was one. And
look, Tannehill. Well, they might just be looking for a backup because
right,
this
but you
is
got
the end of the line for Mariota.
Right. But I'm just saying it's starting to deliver a message now. Maybe is what they're doing, which is kind of interesting.
Well, you got to get Tannehill's giving them a little bit of a spark.
Absolutely. I wouldn't put Mariota back in.
They've got weapons on the outside, and they've got a running back there, so they don't need their quarterback to be the runner.
No, but what's interesting to me, what I'm saying is, it's not like Josh Johnson. I mean, the guy's had enough backup opportunities. He's not the answer. Is what does that say when you're doing that with Mariota at this particular point? Is that almost saying like, Mariota, we don't like you so much that we're not even going to make you the backup if Tannehill gets hurt?
We're not re-signing you off your rookie deal.
Right, but does that mean for the rest of the year you wouldn't even put him in as the backup?
No, that's not true. I think they will if they don't get somebody else in there. I mean,
but why are you working somebody out? I don't know. It's just kind of interesting.
Look, again, keep in mind, the Titans are 4-4. They realistically still are in the race for the AFC South.
Agree.
You got the Colts at the top with 2 losses. You got the Texans right behind them with 3, and then they and Jacksonville, I think, are sitting with the 4 losses. Yeah, yep. So, but it's not like they're way behind, and they'll have their shot, man, because they'll get to play. The Titans get the Colts. Oh, let's see. The Titans get the Panthers this week in Carolina, and then they have the Chiefs, and then they get the Jags, then they get the Colts, then they get the the Texans 2 weeks after that. Then they get the Texans again at the end of there. So they're very much in the race in their division. And like I said, Mariota's giving them a spark. They have weapons on this team.
Tannehill. Yeah, I agree.
mean, yeah,
I agree.
Tannehill.
I don't know. I found that. I guess you didn't. I found that a little bit more interesting.
Yeah,
just that
you
they're
know.
looking at it. What I just don't understand the message, but it may be as simple as Mariota, you're not going to play another down for us.
I know. I think the bigger quarterback question in this is Jameis. I mean, it's he's had some really good games this year that you're like, okay, they'll probably there's a good chance they could re-sign him rather than having to start anew or go pay for a high. They could probably sign him cheaper. And then but then, like you said, switch Jameis. And now, at this point in the season, he's had more bad games than good. So they're probably going to cut bait at the end of the year with them.
Yeah, I would say this. This is how I would envision Jameis. I'm going to use the Bears because it's the team I know the most. Clearly a team that is only really probably a quarterback away. If they're with their running game, right? I mean, just that's how people view them, meaning their defense is good, their running game's okay.
What team
They
is
got
that?
the Bears, and they got some pass catchers. I think you put him on the Bears.
I think their running game for them and for
This
you
is
shitty.
so-so. It's
I
so-so.
think it's shitty.
Well, I think it's shitty
I
because the
think
quarterback.
yours is better than theirs because at least you have the young buck in Montgomery that might turn out to be
So,
something.
no,
But
I'm just-
I think Peyton Barber is not.
No. I'm not
good.
talking about
And
Tampa. I'm saying take Jameis and let's put him on the Bears. Which
Yes.
So I'm trying to take a team that's kind of a quarterback away right now, just because they got a good defense and pretty good weapons on offense, even though they're not playing well. I think if you put him on a Bears team, this is who Jameis Winston is with the best cast that he's probably ever had would be, and he would be a 10-6 quarterback. I think he would be solely responsible for 4 losses because he would have those extremely bad blow-up games where he put his defense in a bad position. And then I think he's a first-round exit out of the playoffs. I think that's who your best-case scenario is with all the weapons that
Best
Jameis
case,
is.
right. Okay.
That's kind of how I look at him. Like, I kind of try to put him on the team that's one, like that's at least perceived to be like a quarterback away.
They can get rid of him all they want. I'll tell you this: the minute they get rid of him, there's plenty of teams out there.
Absolutely.
That
Somebody's
going to
take a chance on
right
him.
up.
Yep.
Okay, we're not talking about Mariota. I don't think Mariota is going to get signed to be a starting quarterback anywhere. If he does, then he's going to be probably a backup. But Winston's a guy that you'll put in there.
Well, his
at quarterback.
ceiling games are much higher than Mariota's. I'm not saying he has a lot of them, but
That's fine.
his ceiling games, and
Yeah,
that's
I
and
wouldn't
that's why
disagree with
Winston,
you.
and that's why Winston,
Yeah.
I think, would get that
He'll get a
opportunity.
gig somewhere,
and
but-
somebody's going to be cash strapped, not have a good solution, or
And
I
again,
tell
you can
like
get
a-
him on the cheap off of his rookie deal
Yeah.
just because he hasn't. I know
Like
the
Washington
bar is
could be a
being
place.
set for these quarterbacks based on previous contracts. You still can negotiate. I mean, Kirk Cousins got that deal just because he had a really great year, but I don't think Jameis's year is going to warrant competing for that type of dollar.
Well, no, because I think he'll. You know what he'll get? He'll get something very similar to what the Bears paid Glennon that one year that everybody thought was obscene. He'll get a 3-year, $45 million contract. He'll get a nice little guarantee that'll all be in the first year, and it'll be a team like Washington that goes, hey, maybe Haskins is either not the guy or not ready, like somebody that they just kind of want to throw out there, much like a Case Keenum kind of guy. Somebody trots out there with the hope that they can win us some games in the process. This experiment isn't working. You never know, though, because I will say this. Arians, it's his first year. He did say that he really, really liked Jameis. Now, wins and losses matter to coaches, so
And
that could
so
all be
does
coach
money,
speak. Yeah, so
because
that
his contract is up.
Oh, but I don't think Tampa's got to pay all that much more even to retain him.
No, but I just that's a decision with the quarterbacks that are coming out in this draft.
Yeah.
That you could even if you're not at the top of the draft order, you still have plenty of room to pick up a quarterback that might be really good for you. So.
Yeah, I mean, again, I could see a 3-year deal with a 1-year. It's really just a 1 year, like the Bears did with Glennon. They knew that they could
And just
they could
franchise
cut
tag
him after a year.
Unless there's somebody else.
That's
there
a
that you
big. I
need
think
to-
that's a bigger number than
You
what
think
they want
so?
to pay.
What'd
I
you
don't
say,
think they'll.
3 at 45. That's 15 a year. I mean, it's going to be
No.
roughly the same.
No, but if you tag them, you got to pay them the average of the
So
tagging quarterbacks.
What is a quarterback now? 16.
No, way more than that. You
Is
got
it?
you got to think it's probably high 20s, low 30s because you take an average of the top 5 at the position.
I don't know if it's that high, bro. I don't think it's a.
All right,
it's going
we'll
over
check
20.
it out
check
offline.
into
But anyway, the point is, I don't think you have to franchise him. But the Bears signed him for a 3-year, $45 million. They didn't pay him the $45 million. His contract was really, they gave him his upfront money, and his contract was really $19 million on a 1-year deal. That's the true language of that. If he didn't perform, so they paid him a hell of a lot of money to play 4 games, but they cut him with almost no salary cap implication in years 2 and 3. That's the kind of deal I expect to see out of Winston this year.
Okay. All right. So that's going to wrap the 1:00 games, and we'll move into the later games. Before we do so, a couple other trade block potentials that we neglected to mention when we ran through those teams. We did talk about the Rams game. Aqib Talib, their corner, who is actually out. He's a little banged up. And remember, the Rams brought in Jalen Ramsey. So it's looking like that the Rams may try to, deal Aqib Talib. At least that's the chatter. Someone else who I've spoken very highly of. The Giants face the Lions this week. Darius Slay. We also, the cornerback there, I think he's one of the best in the league. We talked about them getting rid of his counterpart at safety a week ago. Well, now you got the potential for Slay to be on the trading block as well. I'd love for him to come to New York. I don't know if we could afford that. We talked about the Washington game. There's murmurs that they might look to deal cornerback Josh Norman. And
that's a salary dump, too. That's going to be the challenge for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think he's worth it. So his game has definitely slid down. And then one more that I want to mention, this past week, both the Baltimore Ravens and the Dallas Cowboys were on a bye. Michael Bennett got traded to the Cowboys for a 7th-round pick. So that is a done trade. He is going to be a Cowboy. So that runs through
one more crazy for the asylum.
Yeah, no joke. So those are the names that we've kind of come up with that have been traded or on the block. I don't know if we talked about Marcus Peters. I know he got dealt. Where did he go? Baltimore.
He went to Baltimore, and then got a pick, or was it a pick 6? I think he got in his first game.
Yeah, he did his first game back, or in that uniform against. Weren't they playing? Were they playing his old team in that?
No. But he did it. No, because they lost. That's right. They lost after trading him.
So, like I said, Cowboys, Ravens on the bye this past week. Those are the names that were traded or are on the block. We went through Thursday Night Football and the 1:00 games.
Apparently, Chiefs and the Texans are in on this Le'Veon Bell thing and showing interest.
Yes, and I'm looking at the TV now. It looks like
I don't think the Texans.
Schefter says there is likelihood AJ Green is traded today, or the likelihood. We're not listening to the volume's off, but that's something to look out for. We just talked about it. I mean, if they're going to deal him. Get rid of him now. All right, we're going to take a quick one. You won't know any different. And then we're going to bang you with the 4:00 game, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football. All right, we're rocking on the 4:00 Sunday game, starting with the Carolina Panthers traveling out to the San Francisco 49ers. Undefeated are the Niners going into this game, and we were talking about in the preview, I think it was like a 6.5-point spread that the Panthers were actually getting. We thought it would be much closer of a game, and for all intents and purposes, why not? I know they were traveling across country. They had a week off, the Panthers did, and not so much. The Niners here, wow. They continue their march and prove that they are the team that, with the record that they show, going 7-0 after a 51-13 beatdown of the Panthers, who moved to 4-3. And listen, it was the bend but don't break, right? Because McCaffrey's going to get his. He went 14 for $117 on the ground in the TD, 4 for 38 through the air, but no TDs there. And they really put it. They held him in check as much as they could and forced Kyle Allen, I guess, to try to win this thing. And he just fell on his face. Now, Cam Newton is supposedly ready to come back into the fold. There was conversations about him being back this week, and it was just announced that Allen will start again this coming weekend, not Cam, but Kyle Allen had a PU day, going 19 of 37, only 158 yards, no TDs, and 3 picks. Poo-poo. But again, this offense runs through Christian McCaffrey, and he got his, but he didn't get his enough. And the rest of the team didn't help one iota. And on the flip side of the ball, Emmanuel Sanders gets traded over from Denver, and gets a start, catches the touchdown right away. George Kittle doing his thing, leading receiver with 6 receptions for 86 yards, no touchdown. My man Tevin Coleman goes berserk. 11 carries, 105 yards, and 3 TDs on the ground. Added 2 receptions for 13 yards and another TD through the air. Just absolute dominance from this guy. It's why they brought him over there. It looks like Breida and Mostert are a little banged up. So expect the lead back, Tevin Coleman, to continue this on this tear. Jimmy Grapes, nothing special. 18 for 22, efficient, 175 yards. Yeah, not a lot. 2 TDs, 1 pick. But he does love him some George Kittle and that whole offense. I mean, Shanahan, there's tons of plays drawn up for George Kittle. They're not just typical tight end catches. I mean, screen passes to the tight end, everything under the sun. And, again, the defense. I mean, Nick Bosa, wow, just showing out. He had a pick. Richard Sherman had a pick. Emmanuel Mosley had a pick. These guys just put it to the Carolina offense. So it was very impressive. 51 points in the NFL. I mean, that's a college score. You don't see that very often. We've seen it a few times this year. It's definitely more prevalent than in past years because of the way the game's going. But 51 points, in my mind, one of the better teams in the NFC. Again, coming off a bye, rested. Yes, they had to travel out west, but they had an extra week to get themselves together and game plan. And man, they just got throttled, my friend. Absolutely throttled. And keep in mind, this is a team in San Francisco that just came from being, they've got to be a little bit tired. They had to travel all the way east last week to take on the Redskins, who are not very good and only won 9-0 in what was the 2019 Mud Bowl. Weather aside, they only beat the hapless Redskins 9-0 and then have to travel all the way back home out west. And like I said, the Panthers sitting there with an extra week of rest, and it didn't do them any favors.
Oh, where to begin? Let's just talk about the Niners' defensive front. They had 4 guys on their defensive front who put up a total of 8 tackles for losses and 7 sacks. Let me also throw this one in here. This is a season stat line minus the tackles. Nick Bosa, 4 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 1 pick, 1 pass defended. Was anybody else playing defense for this team? I mean, I don't know that they needed anybody else.
You talk about getting
that's
your
defensive
money,
player of the year, man.
Yeah, you talk about getting your money's worth out of an early, not just a first-round pick, but a number 2 overall. They did a good job.
Little brother Nick is looking down on Joey because he is just destroying teams. I mean, here's the thing is I have to give a lot of, you talked about Cam Newton. Kyle Allen, thrown into a tough situation, not a high-profile player to come out and have to start a bunch of games, was 7 touchdowns and no picks coming into this game.
Not bad.
No, and I mean, obviously, I just told you by the sack totals, he was under siege in this game. And while McCaffrey ran well, it was hard to get anything going in the passing game. So, unfortunately, he throws his first pick of the year and then his second pick of the year and then his third pick of the year. So, there was very little for this guy to do in a game where he had to throw because the Niners, were able to take advantage quickly. That was 27-3 at halftime. This is just one where I put less on Kyle Allen. I mean, certainly he helped create this debacle, but I mean, this is a Niners team that's playing out of its mind, and you've been waiting for a while for this defense to come together with all these first-round draft picks and all these guys they brought in. And, man, it's like I don't know what clicked this year that really – maybe it's Nick Bosa. I don't know. It could be. That could be the igniter to this.
Maybe.
But, I mean,
maybe it could be another guy up for Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
Shanahan. You got to put him in the conversation.
An undefeated team, I think any undefeated team, especially a team that was not a first-place team the year before and a perennial front runner. But, they missed on picks 2 years ago with Solomon Thomas. He's another guy that's supposedly on the trading block. And yet, you look at this. They've got DeForest Buckner, who was a first-rounder. Obviously, Nick Bosa, we mentioned. You got Eric Armstead, playing there. I mean, you got guys all across the front. They just paid money for the outside linebacker, Quan Alexander. So this is a team that's just it's cooking. And, again, Carolina making the long haul. I don't play as much into the East going West. I think it still matters, but, it's just basically a late start game for them. So it's not as big a deal. But they dismantled Carolina, and now obviously with that kind of performance, the pressure is going to be on, especially in a division that's able to be handled with the exception of New Orleans, meaning you still have a shot at a wild card because you're going to have some easy games with the Falcons being down and Tampa being, kind of coming out to be so-so at best right now. But this isn't the way you do it. You don't get taken 51-13 in pro football and probably live to talk about playoffs.
Yeah, another guy that I kind of heard inklings might be on the trading block from San Francisco is backup quarterback C.J. Beathard.
Yep.
So we'll see. They've also got Nick Mullins there. But look, they're, keep in mind, too, they're one of their offensive tackles and probably the best one on their team, Joe Staley, is coming back into the fold, getting healthy. Kyle Juszczyk, who was banged up early in the year, their running back, fullback, is coming back healthy. And they've done everything they can to get their wins without him, and it's only going to get better from here, man. I mean, they look good, and, on the horizon for them, they've got
Arizona.
Yeah, they got
week.
Arizona this coming week in Arizona, I believe, correct? And yes, it is. And then they'll have them again in 2 weeks. So they got the next 3 games are divisional games. They're at Arizona. They're at home against Seattle, who I think Seattle's great, but by no means do I think that they're just going to handle San Francisco. I think Seattle's got to worry.
Yep.
And then they have the Cardinals again, who come to San Francisco. So. And then after that, they get Packers, Ravens, Saints, Falcons, Rams, Seahawks again. So
schedule toughens up a little bit.
It toughens up
but
a little,
there's still
they've
some
proved, against this past week they did well. They beat the Steelers a few weeks ago, who might not be so great, but it is still the Steelers. They beat the Rams handily. I mean, they've handled their business. They beat the Chiefs first game of the year with Patrick Mahomes. First game of the year. Oh, no, that was preseason. My bad. But still, their schedule hasn't been that daunting, but they've absolutely handled their business. And I'm not going to dog them because of the schedule and all of a sudden say when they meet these teams that they're going to have problems. I think they're going to be able to continue to handle their business. And as for Carolina, they already had their bye week, so now they get to come home. They got the Titans this week. Then they have to go to Lambeau. And then they get to come home again and take on the hapless Falcons. But, and they get the Falcons twice, which should be wins. They also get the Saints twice. Now, those are 4 divisional games that they can right their ship and possibly make a push or overthrow New Orleans. Doesn't seem like that's going to happen, but it's possible. Yep. They still have to play them twice in their division. So it's a tough road ahead, and this loss does not help the mentality for certain.
Yep, that's absolutely true. And just kind of breaking right now, an interesting trade.
Yep, I'm glad you're bringing it up.
Aqib Talib was traded from the Rams to the Miami Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
He was in. There's no indication what the compensation yet is, other than it's a future draft pick going back to the Rams. I assume there's probably some play involved in that, but Talib was also traded with a 5th-round pick. So not for a 5th-round pick, but with a 5th-round pick.
Listen, Talib isn't the same guy he was, 5 years ago in Denver.
Right, but interesting is we don't know what the compensation going back to the Rams is. It just says a future draft pick. So don't know what those negotiations are.
I don't think it'll be anything, astonishing. I just think he's a little bit long. He's kind of like Janoris Jenkins, man.
This might be a salary dump for the Rams to make another move. So
that's what I think, because they're tight right now.
Yeah. So I think that's what that looks like to me on the surface. Again, just breaking, so details are limited. But I think we're gonna see a little bit of a flurry here in the last couple of hours before we 4 p.m. today. So it's 2:00 now. So we got about 2 hours for some things to go down.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the next 4 o'clock game, and that was the Oakland Raiders traveling to Houston to take on Deshaun Watson and the Texans, buddy.
Well, so kind of go a couple different routes. One thing to keep in mind is Josh Jacobs was a potential out on this game, which would have been a big thing for the Raiders to absorb. He had, even though they lost the previous week in Green Bay, he had run very, very well in that game. He got a banged up shoulder. I give him credit in this game. He didn't run as much as far as carries, but he still ran pretty effectively. He went 15 for 66. David Carr had a pretty solid game, 18 of 30 for 285 and 3 touchdowns. They spread the ball around. Tyrell Williams kind of got into it. Your boy Hunter Renfrow got 4 catches at 88 yards.
TD of his NFL career, and I loved it because this was the Clemson Tiger game, my friend.
That's right. Yeah, Clemson, everywhere.
Farrell, Hunter Renfrow, and now that they dealt Garyon Conley, the Raiders, that is, our cornerback. Why am I blanking on my man?
Deshaun Watson?
No.
Corner, Travion Mullen.
Travion Mullen comes in and actually has a great game for him. So those are 3 Tigers on Oakland side of the ball. And Houston side of the ball, well, Deshaun.
Yep.
You got Nuke. You got DJ Reader and Carlos Watkins at defensive tackle that both got involved in the game. This was great. I was expecting a little something, and I think I saw a little love after the game between Deshaun and Hunter. Understand something. There is a lifelong connection between those two. Lifelong.
Yep.
The two of them did the walk-off style win of the national championship, and it was number 4 to number 13. They still wear their same numbers. I love Hunter Renfrow. He's a great player. I think he'll continue to be great in this league. And he's a great hands guy. He's a great route runner. You can put the best in the business against him, and he will find a step on him in his route running just because he's smart and he knows how to do it. And you saw that he took a nice little ball on a crosser and went the distance. Man, I love seeing it. I was so happy for my boy. Hunter Renfrow is great.
Yeah. And so all in all, looking at this from an offensive perspective,
Darren Waller was down this week.
Yeah, he did score a touchdown, but he did not get the catches that you'd expect. But I mean, and even better was David Carr was clean, no sacks. So kind of looking at this, you would think that they did well. And 24 points in the NFL is not a slouch, especially against a good team. But the problem for the Oakland Raiders is that Deshaun Watson's on the other side of the ball, and he had himself a nice day as well. 27 for 39 for 279 yards, matched with 3 TDs. He did get sacked 3 times, so he continued to get hit. What I'll say is Carlos Hyde was a little bit more effective on the ground, at least from a standpoint of being able to run it a little bit more, and Deshaun Watson added that running element as he went 10 for 46. Yep. So that was a big balance. DeAndre Hopkins got his catches, got his yards, so kind of got back in rhythm where we kind of expected maybe Stills to take on some of that. But what they really did, which is nice because they haven't done a lot of this year, is they went to their tight end, Darren Fells, and he had 6 catches for 58 yards and 2 scores in this game. And one that was was up on the screen that was very impressive if you didn't see it. If you saw Deshaun Watson went down after a touchdown pass that he threw, and he looked like he was in quite a bit of pain. They actually show the replay. He gets poked square in his left eye, and I mean hard in his left eye. You can actually see him as he's spinning out of the tackle, get poked in the eye. You could see his eye like scrunched
The
really
cleat
hard.
comes up.
Oh, is that what it was? A cleat? It wasn't the post. Yeah, okay. I saw the foot go by. I thought it was a finger.
And a cleat came up. I don't know if it was cleats, but it was.
It was so the
But
cleat.
he said he came up from that and he couldn't see.
Oh yeah,
He said he came up and he just kind of like threw it blind.
But what's amazing is he closes. You can see him literally scrunch his one eye and still happens. Excuse me, to put one right on his. I think that was Stefelis too.
Yeah.
Put one right on him and scored a touchdown.
And it wasn't just the eye. I mean, he was sacked for all intents and purposes, but he
spun out of it. Yeah, he spun out of it.
I think a couple weeks ago there was a similar play and they blew it dead, and he was able to spin out of it. So he obviously maybe had a little word with the ref saying, don't be so trigger happy with that thing. I'm able to escape.
Yeah, this is what I guess when I look at this team, I just kind of think about what they could be if he could get a little bit more pass blocking. The nice thing is they're getting some consistency out of their running game. On the defensive front, one thing to note in this game is that J.J. Watt, who has not had the most spectacular season, but still an important leader, and also he has made some plays here and there, is done for the year. I think it was pectoral muscle. He tore something. So, that will continue to hinder them because their defense is a little bit of a struggle right now.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, that I hate to say it, but he's had some really bad injuries in his career, especially the past few years, that have set him out for the rest of the year, just like this one. And
he's had a blown out knee. I think he had another torn pectoral muscle or bicep. Yeah. Oh, but two torn biceps he had.
Biceps. I mean, it might be almost time. As great as he is, and as great of a representative of the NFL as he is, just unfortunately maybe it's time, man. I mean, these guys, in his position is brutal, and I hate to see the NFL lose a guy like J.J. Watt, but for his own good, it might be about time.
Yeah. One of the true class guys in the NFL. He's a guy I put up, like I always say about that Mount Rushmore, like him, a Drew Brees kind of guy, just a great guy, but went down. So, we're going to have to see how this Texans D can survive. Really, this team goes as far as number 4. I mean, he is everything to this team. I really hope he stays healthy because it's, and it's not that he's, it's not that he's not willing to protect himself, but he has to do so much because, again, this was a 27-24 win. So this game was in doubt throughout. And they had to come back in the fourth quarter. Yep. So he is that Superman. The guy's got a history in college of doing it, has continued that on into the pros. He makes the game far more exciting with him in it than with him out of it. So hopefully he can maintain. I'd like to see him develop this running game a little bit more. And I hope after this year they spend all their draft picks on offensive linemen, at least in the first couple of rounds. Yeah. Just because when this guy's upright, he's special.
On defense. So.
Yeah, they will need that too. But it is. Again, this is a Deshaun Watson game. It's coming through at those clutch moments that you need him to. He never lets you down. I can't imagine. I can't even remember the last time I saw him be responsible for a loss, throwing a pick at the end of a game. I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but that's just how special he is. And this is an Oakland Raiders team that is a good team. Yeah. This is not a bad team. They may not end the year with a spectacular record.
This could be the best. After this week, they go to 3-4. Texans go to 5-3. It could be the best 3-4 team out there.
Could very well be, and it's a team that can. They're going to give any team they play. They are going to give them a tough time.
Yep.
And this Raiders team has done that. I mean, even just showing out against the Packers when Aaron Rodgers was off his rocker, playing so well, better than I can remember seeing him play. He had a perfect passer rating, and they still fought and clawed and hung with him. I think the thing with the Raiders here is this is your high end for David Carr. This year his floor has been pretty good, so he's kind of been pretty balanced. But there's just this thing that Deshaun Watson has that unfortunately there's not a whole lot of other teams that have that at quarterback.
No. So the Raiders will get to go home and bring the Lions to town, and they're at home for 2 weeks. They got that, and then the following week they have a Thursday nighter with the Chargers. And as for the Texans, they go to Jacksonville, have a divisional matchup this weekend. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a London game.
Yeah, London.
Jacksonville is the home team.
It's an early game, I think, at like 9:30
Yep,
local
9:30 Eastern. So Texans Jaguars home game for the Jags. It is a divisional game. It's important because though the Texans do sit at 5-3, they're sitting behind the 6-2 Colts. Jacksonville's sitting at 4-4, as is Tennessee. So they're chomping at the bit. And these two teams played in Houston, second game of the year. Houston won the game, but barely, 13-12. Okay, now I believe in that game, I'm pulling it up really quick. Yeah, Minshew was in there, so they've seen him. It's not somebody they haven't seen. I think that was Minshew's first full game because the first game of the year that the Jaguars played was the one that Foles went down in. And I believe that was against or maybe it was not the first game of the year. It was against the Chiefs. Foles went down. Minshew comes in. Minshew gets his first start the following week in Houston against the Texans. Texans pull it out 13-12. So I say that to say it's it's an important game. And, look, I just said it. That Deshaun Watson's a gamer. You talked, he's going to be ready to go. Ready to go. I hope the travel and the time and all that don't mess with him. I want to see everybody going at full strength, but we know that these games in London can be kooky and screws with these guys a little bit, I think. Moving on to the last 4 o'clock set. You had the Cleveland Browns coming off a bye, rolling up to Foxborough to Gillette to take on the GOAT, Tom Brady and the Patriots. Hit us. What do you think? How we doing?
I am actually going to compliment the Cleveland Browns.
And why?
I said this before that if I was the Browns and I didn't believe the Browns were going to do this, that I would just take my lump and try not to completely have my quarterback get feasted on in this game. And while he wasn't perfect, they gave the ball to Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb actually ran the ball very well in this game. If it weren't
for the 2 fumbles he had, he would have had an unbelievable day against the best defense in the league right now.
Yep.
How did Chubb do?
He went,
20 for 131.
131, yeah.
And that was on the ground.
Yep.
In the air, he had 1 reception for 7 yards. He didn't see the end zone, which is unfortunate, and he did have the 2 fumbles.
Yeah, Baker was 20 for 31, 194 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. That, to me, was the most important number in this game for him. So, I eliminating it, he got sacked 5 times. He was getting pounded. And look, this is a hapless Cleveland team. They don't know what end is up. I think if there's any chance for Baker Mayfield to recover long-term for this team, this was not a game where you want to feast him or send him out to get feasted on by the Patriots. It just, I give him credit for that. Now, that being said, New England dominated this game. New England is awesome. Tom Brady's the GOAT. Bill Belichick's the GOAT. I look at it and I just, every time I watch this, it makes me laugh. Like, I watch Tom Brady go out there when guys are throwing for 300, 350, 400 yards. Tom Brady goes out there, 20 for 36, 259, and 2 touchdowns, and still looks like the greatest player out there. Yep. He doesn't need to throw up those friggin'
all across the board
Madden stats.
Yeah,
he just does
Michelle had 21 carries for 74 yards. Didn't see the end zone. It wasn't like they had blow up stats.
Nope.
Edelman went 8 for 78. Was responsible for 2 of the TDs. Sanu comes into the fold. I thought they might have something for him. He got 2 balls, 23 yards. Looked good doing it. They can win any which way. It doesn't have to be highlighting real numbers or across the board, or even just one guy on the team having highlight real numbers and everybody else just kind of doing their gig. They could all be pedestrian. This is kind of pedestrian numbers across the board, but it doesn't matter because the Patriots defense is infallible.
Yeah. And here's the thing is they create a lot of short fields. They're very efficient and effective in the way that they run. And this was not like, if you watch this was not New England's best game, but it was never in doubt.
Nope.
Never in doubt.
Nope. At no point in time was it, the game, first quarter, it was 17-0. Browns put on a touchdown before half, 17-7. Patriots come out of half. They score another touchdown, and Cleveland puts on another field goal. It's 24-10. And then they match field goals in the fourth. Ends up 27-13.
Probably
so, you're right. It didn't matter.
Yeah, the only thing to keep an eye on, and this is really nitpicking, but could matter in tight games is, as you know, Gostkowski was having a rough year, then is injured.
The Naga Nugent
was in there. He was 2 for 4 on field goals. Longest one was 29 yards. So wouldn't be totally shocked to see them continue to look. I don't know. I didn't mention this earlier, but I saw that not that this is a tremendous upgrade, but Matt Bryant was cut by the Falcons. Just watching, does New England try to make
because he missed several more field goals than Nugent's missed this year.
Well, he just got
and
me
let's
thinking.
Be honest with each other. If Nugent doesn't right himself, okay, they're probably wait till the end of the year to cut bait or whatever, just so they have a kicker. They'll start going for it on fourth down if this trend continues. Don't get it twisted. Belichick will be like, screw it, we'll just go for it.
Yeah, which they've done already multiple times.
Yeah, so, I mean, if it continues down a bad path, I could see them, rather than playing games with the kicker, ride with Nugent the rest of the year and just go for it on fourth down if they feel like they're uncomfortable kicking it.
Yeah,
totally see that. So the Patriots go to 8-0 with a 27-13 victory over the Browns, who moved to 2-5. The Browns again had their bye week, so next week they will go to Denver to the Mile High on the road 2 weeks in a row and take on the Broncos without Joe Flacco. This is a good opportunity for them to get themselves on the right path, but I still think they're going nowhere in that division. Although some people, I'm watching the Sports Center or whatever the show is on ESPN too. People saying that they could make a move and just blow up the rest of the season, and just start on a tear and come out on top of the AFC North. I don't see that happening. On the flip side, the Patriots, possibly with their toughest game of the season coming up next Sunday night. We will have to see. As they travel for Sunday night football to the Baltimore Ravens, and the Ravens are coming off a bye. So we'll see if they can do what they continue to do and just step on people's throat, especially with that defense, or if Lamar Jackson can give them a little bit of a fit.
Yep. Yeah, and just a couple.
I mean, Belichick takes away your best option. At this point, it's going to be Lamar Jackson. So they're going to do everything.
Well, that's their running game as of the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Right.
So,
if you're a Mark Ingram owner, it might be a good day for him.
Could, if they're smart and play it that way. All right, so quick little updates here. I'm going to kind of stop before we get into the last 2 night games. Just some updates on what we're hearing. We mentioned earlier Robbie Anderson is on the block. That's a big one. The Jets look to be in the potential to be a full fire sale. Jamal Adams is being talked about potentially going back to Dallas, which is kind of, I think, where he's either from. I know he went to school in Louisiana. I'm not sure if he's from Texas or Louisiana, but it'll be closer to home.
He's an LSU guy, right?
Yeah. So what the word is, though, is that they're asking for bigger than Minkah Fitzpatrick, which to me, Minkah Fitzpatrick they got big return on that trade. For that guy.
I mean, I think Adams, he's been in the league, a year or two longer than Minkah.
Yeah, he's closer to, he has, but he's also
really good.
He's also closer to a big contract too, so that plays into
deal
it.
Is coming to a close.
Yeah, and we mentioned about Denver being in a fire sale. And just to be told, Von Miller made a comment to Josina Anderson that he's just playing it by ear. Taking it one day at a time, so maybe there's inklings that they're going to make some big moves. Von Miller would be a big, big trade for somebody. And just to finalize the Talib trade, it was what I thought it was when some of the details started coming out. Talib's not eligible to come back, I think, until like week 15. This is purely a salary dump right now. So, keep an eye on the Rams to see if that opens something up that they're looking to do in the next couple of hours. But also just, the Dolphins collecting another draft pick, because the future draft pick might be pretty minimal given the salary they absorbed to finish the season.
I'm just trying to think of what the Rams might want to try to go after. And my first name that comes to mind from the names that have been tossed out there is Trent Williams.
Yeah, I don't know that they can do. I don't know.
I don't know if they have the cap.
The whole thing is the thing with Trent Williams is the Redskins apparently are completely dug in on the idea that they need a first-round draft pick.
I don't know.
And I don't with Jalen Ramsey. I think they already got rid of it. So that could be interesting.
I'm just trying to think like where else do they need help? I mean, you could put somebody on the defense, offensively,
linebacking core.
Yeah, they've got plenty. I mean, they could take Ogletree back from us.
Are you negotiating?
Yeah, why not? Let's get them for more than we got to do.
Oh, you know what? Actually, this is a good note from Adam Schefter. I didn't even think of this. Ramsey wants the extension, so this is clearing some money for that too, potentially. So that makes the most sense. So that's the latest update.
Unanimously votes to explore ways to allow student athletes to benefit from name, image, and likeness. They vote on athlete profiting. Sorry, that's college. We'll talk more about that in our preview.
Yep.
All right, let's go to Sunday Night Football, where we had the Green Bay Packers travel down to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs without Patrick Mahomes. You got Matt Moore coming into play. Did an okay job for him. Unfortunately, it didn't get him the victory. Why? Because, well, Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, my man is playing out of his mind.
Yeah, actually, I think he actually kind of crapped the bed a little bit because his quarterback rating dropped, 30 points.
Yeah, I mean, when you're going from responsible solely for 6 touchdowns in a game to only throwing 3 TDs instead of 5 and running for 1.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy went 23 of 33, 305, 3 TDs, no picks. Kansas City's defense by no means is formidable, but I mean that's still great numbers considering they're an average. They didn't run the ball. I mean, they ran the. Aaron Jones had a good day, going 13 for 67, but they didn't really stick with it a ton. He also went 7 for $159 and 2 TDs through the air, though.
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, I'm trying to figure out who I've seen like kind of playing like this, and a name that comes to mind to me is Kareem Hunt in his rookie year, where he kind of just came on the scene and that ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, and then supplemented. Even though he only ran the ball 13 times, he still had 67 yards. He was over 5 yards a clip. So it was not
didn't stick with it a lot.
But he was catching passes, swing passes, catching it out. It's a different balance. I mean, I guess I got to say there is something to this idea that they needed to get away from the Mike McCarthy philosophy on offense, and it's translating. I got to say this Packers team. We're talking about the Saints and teams like that are really good. The Niners, the Packers got to be right there with them. Yeah. I mean, just with the way they're playing. And
Rodgers looks comfortable, and I think that's the big thing. He doesn't look like he's upset with the play calling of LaFleur. It seems like they're starting to gel.
Yeah, they're trusting each other.
Yeah, and he seems like he's having a good time and he's comfortable. And when he's like that, then he is one of the, if not the most dangerous quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, and he's starting.
And I say that because we know that Brady's the GOAT, but I use the adjective dangerous because that's what he can be. He is a dangerous quarterback to have to face when he's on point.
Yeah, and I think the real big difference in this game, and you mentioned that they didn't run it as much, but the running attack was far more effective. Matt Moore played pretty well, but what he doesn't have, and again, talking about trade rumors, Le'Veon Bell is apparently being looked at, and both the Texans and the Chiefs.
It would fit both of those.
I don't think the Texans have the draft picks to do it after some of the moves they made.
Yes.
But the Chiefs could. And the interesting thing with this is that could be that balance they need. This is a team that with Mahomes out needed to be able to lean on the run, and they tried, but not as successfully as you would like. You'd like to see, they ran the ball about 20 times in this game. You'd like to see in the game like this more to 25 to 30 in order to help Matt Moore.
They ran out there averaged more than 4 yards a carry. McCoy for 9 for 40. Damian Williams 7 for 30 and a TD. Darrell Williams 2 for 10. I think that's a problem though. Like you need to have like the guy, and I feel like they've started going into LaShawn McCoy being the guy, the lead back, but then they get off point, or the guy has a fumble. And I understand people sometimes get benched after a fumble and just kind of get their head right. But, he was running. He looked pretty fresh running. He's definitely, and it surprises me because there's definitely some wear and tear on this guy's wheels, but he definitely looks to be the best runner in this backfield.
Yep.
But Le'Veon Bell, wow. That could make a lot of sense, and
Yeah.
they could be really dangerous.
I think the problem with McCoy, though, is like you said, is I don't think he can look that way. Probably running 20 to 25 times a game, and I think that's the problem. And when they spell them, and here's the other thing about running backs, and this is the challenge, and probably why they don't really have the shelf life is running backs are rhythm players, just like quarterbacks. They see holes better when they get more touches and
That's
they get
why
a few
this whole
clean runs.
Mix-up, it doesn't always...
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because very few
you
running
look
backs
at
can
Dalvin
get it rolling.
Cook, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey. These are guys that are doing really well that they own the backfield.
Yep. And they
Even Fournette?
yeah. Like you want to see your running back tap his own helmet to say, okay, it's time for me to come out.
I need a block.
As opposed to going, I got to hold this guy back because if I run him 15, 16, 17 times, he's going to get hurt or he's going to start to slow down. And that is a challenge because I don't think the Williams brothers are really, there's
they're not really brothers.
I know they're not, but they're both D. Williams, so they look like
D. Williams.
But they
look, yeah.
I think that's the problem is they're not carry the load guys, and when you don't have a guy that if he has to can carry the ball, 18 times at a minimum, you're in trouble. And Le'Veon Bell could be gifted an opportunity. Yeah, again, it could be gifted an opportunity if he was to get traded to a team like this
and if he gets traded and we don't see the Le'Veon Bell we're used to in a system like this, or even Houston for that matter, even though it could be the end of the line for Le'Veon. Okay? That year off did not do him any juice.
Get back to the rapping.
Yeah, I mean, look, Matt Moore, we talked about it, and we talked about this in the preview. They did, I think, what we expected, just like the Steelers did a few weeks ago when Rudolph came in. They got the ball out of his hands, into the playmaker's hands, didn't ask him to do too much, went 24-36, 267 yards, 2 TDs. The big number is no picks.
Yeah.
He went in there, he didn't throw any picks on a Packers defense that's been doing all right. So, he didn't have to, and that's a credit to Andy Reid and that coaching staff, and that's what we expected. Unfortunately, they came out with a loss, but this is against a good Packer team without Patrick Mahomes, and they were in it. They lose the game 31-24.
Yep.
Chiefs sit at now at 5-3, Packers at 7-1. But if you were to, no losses is a good loss, but if you were to say a loss is a good loss, this might be one of them. You don't have your superstar back there. You made it a game and hung in there, and you didn't fall to pieces with this backup quarterback.
Yeah, I mean,
the defense actually looked okay at times.
That's
Kansas City.
That's an offense that can destroy you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I mean, ask Oakland how their defense felt after that game against Rodgers. I mean, he can destroy you, and they didn't, and they made it competitive.
Yeah. At halftime, it was 7. Packers come out 14-0 first quarter. Then they don't score in the second quarter, and Kansas City proceeds to put 17 points on the board. They go into half at 17-14 KC. So, and then the Packers come out, get 3 in the third. That was only points in the third, tied up. We're going in the fourth quarter, tied up, man.
Yep. So, again, that a game that probably we would all hope to see with everybody healthy because it probably would have had a lot more luster on it. But it ended up being a good game, and I give credit to Chiefs are starting to figure some things out, it appears, on defense, which is nice to see because they've been void of defense for the first 6 weeks of the season.
There seems to be a little bit of a pass rush and a little bit of the ability to slow down the run. Run. Now, again, Aaron Jones went bonkers, but most of that came from the pass game.
Yes.
But they're able to, it seems like, I still think their linebacking core is, and their secondary, I'm wondering, but their front, and they do have some players on that front, is starting to slowly but surely put some pressure on quarterbacks and starting to shore up the run, people running against them.
Yep. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the last game of the week. This was a Monday nighter. Certainly on paper, this looked like it was one of the more awful games you're going to watch this year. I don't want, it was a little bit surprising the way it started. I mean, the Steelers team is it's struggling to find its footing. It was quickly 14-0 Miami. Mason Rudolph looked completely lost, threw an interception that was awful in the beginning of the game, and then threw another interception that the guy happened to tiptoe and touch the sideline, and they were giving the ball back
out of bounds, but
yeah. I mean, he was 1 for 6 in his first 2 drives with a pick. So it was a bad start. And, this is the thing about Fitzpatrick is sometimes he looks like Brady and then sometimes he looks like Marsha Brady. You just don't know what you're going to get with him.
And sometimes you get James Conner running the football, hitting the dirt, coming up, and he has a grass beard that looks just like Fitzmagic.
It does. And that was probably the most exciting part of the game. But I will say this. Again, this is a Pittsburgh team learning how to win with a new cast of characters. I like that Mason Rudolph was able to recover in this game. He came back and threw 2 touchdown passes. Wasn't terribly efficient through the air, but played much better.
Could it be that we had a Juju sighting?
Not could be. We did. We had 5 receptions for 103 yards and a touchdown. It took him a little while to get going, but once he did, he looked good. He looked like the guy we've been waiting to see. In this game, I will say James Conner ran really well, ran with a lot of conviction. Their other receiver, Deontay Johnson, he was really good in this game. He scored a touchdown.
He seems to have a little rapport maybe from being on second string team.
I would bet
with Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, and there was a couple passes where they just missed each other. Yeah. So he could have had a really, really big night, and he hit on a few of those. I just think this team is starting to figure it out.
Alan Hearns still plays football,
and he caught a touchdown.
I didn't even know he was in Pittsburgh.
No, he's not. He's in. He's for the Dolphins.
I mean, that's right. See,
do you know anybody on? Do you know anybody on the Dolphins?
Devontae Parker,
Fitzpatrick. Yeah, well, that's because you have skin in that game.
I see Nick O'Leary's there, buddy. Nick O'Leary.
Yep, you have 1 target for 0 catches.
Yeah.
Well. Yeah, I mean, it's a Miami team. You look, they're down to Walton playing running back. I don't know how Balaj gets on the field at all.
I don't think he will. I don't know that Walton's their guy either.
No,
but keep in mind, they're 0-7 after this game, and they're going to have a high draft pick, and there are some backs coming out in this draft.
Oh, yeah. We were talking about this kind of offline. This may be, from a skill position standpoint, one of the most stacked drafts that I can remember. I mean, there is running back. I mean, you're going to be able to get running backs in the second round that are going to be game changers. I'm thinking of, just as an FSU fan, Cam Akers, because I don't think he's going to be ahead of Dobbins and Jonathan Taylor unless he does something crazy at a combine. Because you're going to go after positions like DNs. We talked about DNs, quarterbacks, corners, and left tackles, and then you're going to have these running backs and receivers coming out from all over the place. So Miami probably is, if you're going to have a horrid season and pull up some draft picks, this might be one of the bigger drafts that we've got out there. I think the quarterback position,
think they could stick with Fitzpatrick, man.
Maybe right. Yeah, I mean, even if he's a bridge, to something, because he is older, but. The whole point is, I think there's going to be a lot of talent that comes out. Be interesting to see. I don't know what other moves they may make. I don't know that there's really much left on the roster that screams trade for me. But anyway, so this was a game. Miami started off hot, but then Miami was Miami, and Pittsburgh was able to come back. You could see on the TV the fans were PO'd watching the first quarter and a half. So we'll see what happens with Pittsburgh. I don't want to say that they're out of it. Their division is, nobody's really blowing it up. The Ravens certainly have started to take a little bit of a lead.
Yeah, well, we said that, there is the potential for Pittsburgh, because they're starting to come on, to make a run at this division, but it would have to start.
It's got to start now,
and they did. And at the beginning of the game, I was thinking those exact words that we said in our preview. That has to start now, and here it is, 14-0 Dolphins. I was like, holy Christmas!
That's the end. Their next 2 weeks are probably the most critical. They get the Colts, and then they get the Rams. After that, their schedule starts to soften up. Plus, they get divisional games where they can kind of make moves on their own division. It's going to take a lot for Pittsburgh to be able to do that, but it is It's laid out for him to take advantage of. I guess I'll say it that way.
Yep. So that's going to wrap it up for the recap of NFL Week 8. We appreciate everybody listening. Make sure we'll get this out and up hopefully tonight. If not, you'll see it in the morning. Make sure you give it a listen. We thank you. We'll see you next time, as always, on the gridiron. Have a good day.